Now if we're talking body, you got a perfect one, so put it on me. Swear it won't take you long if you love me right. We fuck for life, on and on and on.
I'm on that good cushion alcohol. I got some damn bitches I can call. What's that? I don't know what I would do without y'all. I'm a ball till the day I fall. I'm on that good cushion alcohol. I got some damn bitches I can call. I don't know what I would do without y'all. I'm a ball till the day I fall.
I like beer.
Till the day I fall.
I know it's hard to admit it that you found love. It's hard to stay in it, but he's better than anyone I've seen you with before. It's true love, don't fake it. You better not, you better not. It's right here, don't waste it. You better not, you better not.
Can we forget about the things I said when I was drunk? I didn't mean to call you that. I can't remember what was said or what you threw at me. Please tell me why.
Because when the sun shines, we shine together. Told you I'll be here forever. Said I'll always be your friend. You can stand under my umbrella. Ella, ella, eh, eh, eh. Under my umbrella. Ella, ella, eh, eh, eh. Under my umbrella. Ella, ella, eh, eh, eh. Under my umbrella. Ella, ella, eh, 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 eh.
Lifestyle to the rich and the famous. They're always complaining, always complaining. If money is such a problem, well, they got mansions. Think we should rob them. Lifestyle to the rich and the famous. We'll take clothes, cash, cars, and homes. Just stop complaining. If money is such a problem, well, they got mansions. Think we should rob them.
Shake your money maker. Like you were shaking it for some paper. Took your mama 9 months to make ya. Might as well shake what your mama gave ya. You looking good in them jeans. I bet you look even better with me in between. I keep my mind on my money, money on my mind. But you's a hell of a distraction when you shake your behind.
me, Junior?
Damn, I ain't be going psycho. Lil' mama bad like Michael. Can't really trust nobody with all this jewelry on. You, my roof look like a no-show. Got diamonds by the bolo. Come with the Tony. I just for crumbs and all the pictures. Know you're mine. Hands on your body. I don't wanna waste no time. I can't look away. Just gotta say, and I'm like, whoa, man, my legs so goddamn cold. Diamonds when my teeth are sore. I gon' always let it go. I just let you know you're.
Don't make a sound. 2 a.m. love, gotta keep it down. Don't wait around for a signal now. Give me some verb, I ain't talking now. You wanna ride in the 6, you wanna dine in the 6. But when I lean for the kiss, you said I'll probably send you some pics. And I'm like, hell no, don't waiting too long. Hell no, I want that cruel love. Hell no, don't waiting too long. Hell no, I want that cruel love. Body of mine, losing all my innocence. Yeah, body of mine, finding all my innocence. Yeah, body of mine, losing all my innocence. Yeah, body of mine, finding all my innocence.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. On the cusp of the whiteout, it is whiteout week here. A lot to talk about. Final thoughts with that Michigan beatdown. We have Paul Clifford joining only on the podcast as our Big Ten guest picker. So if you want to listen to that, you need to be listening on the podcast. Got a lot to talk about as far as Minnesota goes. Got a lot to talk about as far as recruiting goes. Big show for you coming up. Stay tuned. And welcome in Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane, everybody. How you doing today, Sean?
Very good, Corey. Very good. It is hump day, and I'm feeling better than I was on Sunday. So that's optimistic.
That's good to hear. I don't really know if we should be reflecting on ourselves, but I feel like we have a good mix of between both of us as far as we kind of cover a lot of the different bases as far as how people are feeling. So,
right.
I think we got it all covered. I think we definitely kind of captured. I mean, we're not crazy, so we didn't capture the people that are absolutely nuts. we didn't capture their perspective very well. But for the people in the middle of the road, but people that obviously care, I think we got that covered pretty well on Sunday's episode.
I think so too. I mean, because you're going to feel emotional after a game like that. And I think if you care about the program, you care about the team, you're going to have an emotional reaction. Now, I mean, I don't think it justifies, completely losing your mind. And, but you're going to have an emotional reaction to a bad loss like that. So that's only fair. That's only to be expected because we all care so much about the team.
Yeah, we have 12 Lionheart in chat, and he or she says Sean has let the steam all out from last game. He might still have some steam left over. You never know.
You never know. It might come out a little bit. It might get a little.
I think there's going to be a lot more steam depending on how the Nittany Lions rebound against Minnesota this week.
Yes.
So just so everyone knows, we actually already recorded the Big Ten guest picker with Paul Clifford. Again, if you want to listen to that, it's going to be on podcast form only. He couldn't join during the live show, so we actually recorded it a couple hours ago. And I was going somewhere with that. I think what I was going to get at was basically, this is whiteout week, but I don't think we've ever had a whiteout game right after a Penn State loss before. Like, obviously Penn State has gone into the whiteout, beaten before. But I don't know if they've ever lost the week before the whiteout. I know in 2018, they played Michigan State at home, but that was a rainy, wet day, and I don't think that was. I know it wasn't the whiteout, but I don't even know if that was like a stripe out or something. I'm not really sure, but
I think it was a stripe out.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too. That it kind of was in the back of my mind that it might have been a stripe out, but it was so rainy that the jackets were out. It didn't look like that great anyway, and we saw I think Amani Ararie drop an interception right in front of us that day. But anyway, my point is, happy thoughts here. Happy thoughts. It doesn't necessarily feel like a normal whiteout week, but it is. And I understand the frustration. Do I need to go to the single cam already to get this point?
Go ahead. I think you have some things to say.
Yeah. Maybe we just start that from the top and we can go there. So let me switch over to me real quick. And let just kind of, and I think the thing is, Sean, I think sometimes you get the worst personalities, right, on Twitter. So I think that's plays a big role in this. But I'm just I don't really understand where the Penn State fan base is right now. Because at the beginning of the season, people were telling me 6-6, people were telling me 7-5, people were telling me 8-4, 9-3. I felt like I was super on the edge by saying Penn State would go 10-2. Well, then Penn State makes it through Purdue. They make it through Auburn, which, granted, aren't as great of wins as maybe people thought they were going to be. But still, not many people expected them to be undefeated past that point. And then, obviously, the Michigan game happens. And we've said this many times, Sean, already, and we'll continue to say it. We agree. It wasn't that Penn State lost to Michigan. It was how they lost to Michigan. We get the frustration 100%. Again, listen to the last episode if you need to hear us vent about it. But what I don't understand, Sean, is when did Penn State become this defeatist attitude that just everything stinks and we should already be looking towards 2023? I get it. The future does look bright, especially at the quarterback position moving forward. And we've already told you how we feel about the quarterback position. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. But this idea that the season's over, that there's nothing to play for, when you still have the Ohio State Bobcats coming into your backyard in 2 weeks, to me, that is extremely just the wrong mentality to have. I get it. The game stunk on Saturday. But you now walk into the whiteout game, and you're not jacked up and ready to go, and then you have the Buckeyes the following week. This is mid-October, people. As soon as you think you have the whole college football season figured out, you don't. Chaos is going to happen, and if you want it to be in favor of you, you better start turning around how you're thinking about this football team. And I get it. I get the frustration. I get the wanting to look to the future. But I have seen way too many comments lately, Sean, about just how this season's over, and there's just no way they do anything. And what's the point if we go 8-4, 9-3 down the stretch? And a part of that has to do with the college football playoff being put on a pedestal compared to everything else. But that does not mean you have an opportunity against Minnesota. You have an opportunity against Ohio State. And I'm not saying they're going to dominate in those games or even beat Ohio State. But those opportunities lay in front of you. And it is too good of a time with Penn State 5-1 to be just sitting back when the expectations were a lot worse coming in to just say the season was given up. I'll wrap up this rant, Sean, by saying again, my bold prediction or my thought going into the season was I wanted to see Penn State still in the Big Ten East race before the Ohio State game. That was my goal. That was the hope. That was the pipe dream, if you will. And Penn State is one win away against Minnesota in a whiteout game to getting to that point. So to me, Sean, I think Penn State is ahead of expectations. I think this idea that the season's over and you need to cut ties with all the old guys and let the new guys play and prepare for 2023 is ludicrous. I think there's a concept there that could be right eventually, but I don't think we're there yet. And I think Penn State fans need to reevaluate themselves a little bit.
Yeah, few things. Number one, I pretty much 100% agree with you. We still have everything to play for. It's not time to pack it in yet. And people are kind of talking like we lost the Purdue and Auburn game. And we won the Purdue and Auburn game. And we lost to a really good, maybe even a great Michigan team. Like, has anybody stopped and thought, like, maybe Michigan has a chance to win it this year? Because I don't think Georgia and Bama have looked all that stellar. And I think Ohio State's the best team in the country, but if Michigan goes into Columbus and beats them, yeah, I mean, I think they could have a shot. So knowing that, we lost to a legitimate playoff contender. We got blown out by a legitimate playoff contender on the road. That does tend to happen sometimes, guys. Now, what I will, I'll defend the fans a little bit here. It's fair to be bummed about being blown out, especially when you know James Franklin's history off of losses. That's fair. That's fair to think, here we go again. I think it's almost a natural human reaction because I know Corey says a lot, and I typically agree. Every year's a new year, which is true. But yeah, the past is a barometer. It's human instinct to use the past, especially when we just got blown out off another bye week. And that's something that was a pattern that's been a pattern in the James Franklin era. So fans are naturally looking to the next pattern. I know I am. I know that's something I fear, that how are we going to be off a loss? Now, I will say something to keep you optimistic. Off of 20-point losses in the last 5 games in the James Franklin era, the next week we are 4-1. So that tells me that maybe the team doesn't handle close losses well, but they might handle blowouts well. I mean, I'm sure the blowouts suck for them, but they're able to bounce back well off of blowouts as opposed to losing close games, which kind of makes sense. I mean, do you remember every blowout loss in 2004 or 2003? But I know you remember the 2005 Michigan game. I know you remember that one because it was close and it meant something. But, you know, you're not going to remember blowouts quite the same way. And, like, the finer details of the game. In 10 years, we're probably not going to remember that many details about the Michigan game. We probably won't. We'll just remember getting our asses whooped. And I think we can't have panic here. And we do have to take a deep breath. And we have to regroup. Now, if we lose on Saturday, if you thought I was mad last Sunday, you ain't seen nothing yet, because I am going to be fuming on Sunday. That I could promise you. But we're not there yet. We didn't play a game yet. So let's everybody relax a little bit. Remember, we're 4-1 off of our last 5 blowout losses. Calm down and try to beat a beat up Minnesota team.
I can already hear people saying that, you know, you using the blowout stats is is just another reason to get rid of Franklin. Like, well, why does he even have blowout losses?
No, come on, guys. Come on. Well, because we're not Alabama and we're not Ohio State.
We're gonna get
every other team has blowout losses. Come on.
I agree. I mean, Ohio State even got blown out by Iowa a couple years ago. So,
good point. They got blown out by Clemson too.
That's true. That's a good point.
Let's not pretend like it. I think we've only gotten blown out 5 times since 2015. So it's not like it happens every like 3 weeks.
Right. Can you imagine if that happened to James Franklin and a Penn State-led team, finally made it to the college football playoff and then lost 31-0?
It would be, big game James gets there and he gets blown out.
Yeah. So we actually have a question about the college football playoff a little bit later on in the show. Thank you guys for all being here. A lot to talk about today, but I'm kind of glad we got that out of the way, because that was just, to me, Sean, that, and I agree with you, like, I feel like people have the attitude that second loss has happened. And you're right. There is human nature involved as far as how you begin to peek ahead a little bit as far as, the potential for a nosedive. And I get it. But with the Whiteout week, with everything coming up, I choose not to live my life that way, right? Like, we get 12 Penn State Saturdays guaranteed every year. And in the middle of October with one loss, I refuse, although I was upset on Sunday and Monday, I refuse to let that affect me going into the Whiteout game. It just, I don't know. It's kind of Christmas Day for Penn State fans. Like, Whiteout, it's something special. And I feel like you should really, I don't know, at this point in the season, still have some optimism left in you. But I understand why some people don't. So I get it.
Yeah, and I mean, losses happen, but we can't let it derail us. And I know for me, that's what I fear the most. And I think it's what a lot of Penn State fans fear the most. I think too, the quarterback debate is there and people are having it. And that's a whole other layer, because people, let's be real, people wanted Sean Clifford not to come back this year. And Sean Clifford came back, and we told you right here, as soon as he starts, if he has a mediocre game or he has a bad game or we lose, the knives are going to be out. And the knives have certainly been out. And, it is what it is. And from what it sounds like, he's probably going to play this weekend. But, we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think the quarterback controversy has put a whole other layer on this, and it created a whole other discussion.
That's a good point. Doesn't matter if you guys are listening on Apple or Spotify or on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever podcast director you choose, make sure you're following and subscribe there. If you head on over to Apple and drop us a 5-star review, we'll send you a sticker. We'll read it on the show, and we'll show it on YouTube. And you can also rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Let us know that you did it, and we'll send you a sticker for that as well. We do have 2 new ones that I wanted to present, if I could. I think we're up to 83. So the goal was that we would somehow be able to get to 100 by the end of the season. I'm not giving up. We're about halfway now. So we're 17-ish reviews or ratings away on Apple. So if you haven't done it yet, it takes about a minute. Again, we'll send you a sticker. This one is from Tarpon Liam, I guess. Good listen. 5 stars, level heads, fun. Good listen, level heads, fun. Simple as that. Easy. That probably took Tarpon Liam 5 seconds to do that. And if they DM us, we'll send them a sticker. So thank you for that. And then this other one, we can pull that up here. I think this other one, by the way, was a blue-white victory train. I believe this is the second one they've done, and I couldn't find their first one anymore. So I think if you do multiple, we'll still read on the show. But I don't think it saves your previous one. And so just keep that in mind. But we'll as long as you keep doing them, we'll keep reading them because we don't care. Anyways, 5 stars. He says, episode 44, Big House Game. Awesome show. Proud of both of you. Keep it going, gentlemen. We are. Just listen to episode 40. I think he meant 45. Quality job, gentlemen. Definitely 5-star. So thank you to Blue White Victory Train. We appreciate that as well. Again, takes you about 5 seconds to do it. We'll send you a sticker. And yeah, we'll get there in a second. We do have a Lionheart asked us a question on YouTube. Could this be the least anticipated whiteout game of all time? The broadcast crew is D-League team. I don't know who the broadcast crew is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Lionheart, let us know who it is, and we'll talk a little bit about it. I will say it is on ABC, so I mean, I expect a pretty good looking group.
I thought we'd be getting Herb Street and Fowler just because it's a 7:30 game.
Me too, but let us know, Lionheart.
Apparently not.
While Lionheart's letting us know in the comments on YouTube, we will swing it on over to Penn State players in the NFL. Actually pulled up a little bit. I made a little quick, I don't even call it a graphic, but we pull that up there for you guys on YouTube. You can see that. Doesn't have all of them, but it does have a lot of them. Mike Gesicki having himself a little bit of a streak here. He's got 3 touchdowns now in 2 games, 6 catches, 69 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week. Looking pretty good, Sean.
He played well. Yeah, this was Mike's best game of the year. I think he helped Teddy out a lot. Thankfully, I think we're going to get Dolphins are going to be getting Tua back this week. So I hope it continues because I think the Dolphins offense it opens up a lot more when Mike is doing what Mike does. So happy to see it.
Yeah, it's nice to see him doing some good things. I thought maybe he was going to get traded there for a while. I saw someone in my fantasy league already picked him up. By the way, if anyone was curious, Carson Wentz ended up getting me 3.6 points and got me the dub, though. I literally won 95-94. So did the bare minimum, but got me the dub. So it was better than playing nobody, but I dropped him, if anyone was curious on the Carson Wentz situation.
Did you need those few points?
Yeah, I literally won by 1 point.
Oh, you told me that. Yeah. Well,
yeah. So I got the job. I could have won by 20 if I would have started Trevor Lawrence, but yeah, whatever.
He's on my team, actually, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I got him starting this week again. So hopefully, I've been having really bad quarterback luck. But anyway, Saquon Barkley, 22 rushes, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Giants are looking really good. Giants keep winning. Allen Robinson, nice to see him. 5 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Nice to see.
Yards.
63 yards, yes. That was nice to see as well. He's kind of struggled to fit in over there in Los Angeles. So that's nice to see. Nick Scott got an interception in the end zone. I think that kind of pretty much sealed the game for the Rams, actually. So that was good to see. Miles Sanders, 18 rushes, 71 yards, and a touchdown. I have him on my fantasy team, so it's nice to see him getting the bulk of the carries finally. They've been doing that running back by committee for so much, but now Sanders is finally really kind of dominating the rushing attempts there. Jaquan Brisker, you were right, Sean. This happened live while we were streaming last week. Brisker, 5 tackles, 1 sack, and looking pretty good. Chris Godwin, 6 catches for the Buccaneers for 95 yards. He also, I think, recovered a fumble. Carl Nassib got a sack for the Buccaneers as well. And then KJ Hamler's 2 catches for 44 yards. I did see Connor McGovern also had another start for the Cowboys, and Bates another start for the Bills. What were you about to say, Sean?
KJ should have had a touchdown too. On one of those catches, because Russell Wilson, who I think Sean Clifford might be better than Russell Wilson, and I'm not even exaggerating by that much. He threw up a duck that Hamler had to find in the air, and he had his man beat. He had his man beat down the sideline, and it should have been 6, but Russ, I think, is cooked.
Yeah, he's got some hamstring issues now, and I actually had him on my fantasy team too. And every time I didn't play him, he did well. Then I played him, he would do anything, so I just got rid of him. This is the bad juju. Jordan Stout averaged 47.5 yards per punt. I think he had 2. And Blake Gillikin had 3 punts, averaging 49.7 yards per punt. So that was good to see. Some other people had tackles. Austin Johnson, Daquan Jones had a couple tackles. I think maybe even a tackle for loss. But that's pretty much it from PSU in the NFL, Sean. Lionheart did respond to us. He or she's saying that we have Joe Tessitore and Greg McElroy for the Penn State Minnesota game, which is definitely disappointing.
It's a downer. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised actually.
Me too. I'm sure that Kirk Herbstreit is the most bummed of anybody as far as that goes. Okay, so we got that done. We owe it to you guys to do some recruiting news because we haven't done very much recruiting news for a while, and honestly, I don't even feel that bad about it because, well, I mean, let's just be honest here. Like, football's going on, but a very big recruiting weekend, White Out weekend. Lots of guys coming. Sean, I think this is what we're gonna do. I have a list here from what I basically was able to find on Twitter. It's not everybody, but I'm just gonna run through some of these people, and then you can just kind of pick up the pieces because I feel like you're much better at just picking up the pieces than me. So yeah. 4-star defensive tackle from Pittsburgh is actually a Pitt commit. Jashir Whittington, 2020. These are all 2024 guys, just to get out of the way. He's coming. 3-star edge Joseph Mapoyi from Connecticut. 4-star 2024 KJ Jackson. He's a quarterback from Alabama. 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo from St. Louis, Missouri. 4-star wide receiver Tassir Denmark.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's from Roman Catholic actually. And 4-star wide receiver Anthony Specca. But I think he also can play linebacker. He's from Pennsylvania as well. 4-star wide receiver Rico Scott. I actually really like that guy. That guy's from Bishop McDevitt.
Yep.
4-star offensive tackle Kevin Haywood from where's he from? I don't know where I didn't put where he's from. But
Archbishop Wood, Warminster, PA.
And there's a crystal ball that's public knowledge for Penn State as well in that one. And then I also wanted to mention, I'm going to butcher this, Jake Gornera from Florida. And Penn State was actually the first one to offer him. First D1 offer was Penn State. He's a 3-star guy coming up. Those are the 2024 guys, Sean. Is there anyone else you want to mention for the 2024 guys that I may have missed?
Ellis Robinson. He's actually the number 3 overall recruit for 2024. I think he's the highest rated guy that Penn State has coming in this weekend.
Oh yeah. Oh, I missed a bunch. Yeah, my bad. I read my sheet.
No, that's okay. That's okay. He's originally from Connecticut, but he's down at IMG Academy now. As you guys know, we have a lot of guys from IMG, and some couple of guys, or one guy coming in from IMG this year. Penn State was actually his first offer. So again, we've talked about before, one of James Franklin's strengths is seeing talent early. So it was big that we were able to get that early offer out to him. Tassir Denmark, he's actually committing next month. I think on his mother's birthday. It looks like an Ohio State Penn State battle. I don't think there's a crystal ball in for him yet, but I think this would go a long way in trying to make a name for and Penn State trying to go forward. Mekhi White, he's from King George, Virginia. He's another guy we have coming in. Jacob Oden. So Cooper Cousins is coming back. He's our lone commit right now. But I think that's going to change. It wouldn't surprise me if we potentially saw a commit from Haywood this weekend, actually. And look, the thing with the whiteout, it's interesting because James Franklin or Bill O'Brien or Joe would love it. I mean, obviously it gives you an edge on the field, but there's nothing that helps you in recruiting more than the whiteout. So getting a win on a whiteout night, I mean, I think I heard, who was it? I think it was Pat Fryermuth. I'm not positive though. He said as soon as he was at the whiteout game, he knew he was coming to Penn State. Like, it is that big of a sell. So crucial that we get everybody who were remotely interested for the 2024 class up for this one. KJ Jackson, also from Alabama. He's a quarterback. He's coming up this weekend as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sean. I think I saw some people grumbling, saying like, "Oh, should we have everybody that wants to come?"
Yes.
And it's like,
yes,
yeah. Like some people are like, "Well, maybe we don't want everybody. Like, what, are they just doing it just to come up for the, just for the experience, but aren't actually interested?" It's like, it doesn't matter, because they might have teammates.
Yeah, maybe they'll get interested.
Or they might get interested too. So like, regardless, you take everybody, and the more people that are up there, the more energy it creates anyway. So, 2025 guys I wanted to mention: Ryan Montgomery from Ohio, top 100 quarterback, top 100 player, top quarterback. Probably an Ohio State lean, Sean, but he's going to be there. He was at Michigan last week, and he's at Georgia the week before, so he's getting around quite a bit. 4-star linebacker Deshaun Burnett from Pittsburgh as well. He's a linebacker, 4-star guy. Those are two guys in the 2025 class I really wanted to mention. 2023 class, a lot, pretty much. I shouldn't say all of them, but most of the class that's intact right now are pretty much going to be up there. So that's pretty exciting to see as well. It's always a good sign when you have guys that are already committed coming up there.
Absolutely. And Joseph Mopoy, who's for 2023, he's actually Zion Tracy's teammate. So could be a package deal there. We need edge guys, so it'd be nice to pull him on board.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think I accidentally said 2024 originally.
Yeah.
And also, Sean, do you think that he might be someone that you might see a commit from this weekend?
I don't know. Let me, because I think we're the best team on his offer sheet. Actually, he has quite an impressive offer sheet. But it looks like we're his only scheduled visit right now, so not too sure. But you never know. It's definitely good that we have his teammate on board.
That never hurt.
And just a little something about, like, should we have people up? So a story about the 05 whiteout that a lot of fans might not know. So that was the year Penn State played Ohio State, the Tom Hawley fumble and everything. And it was only the second whiteout. It was, it wasn't even a whole full stadium whiteout. It was a student whiteout. And it was a crazy atmosphere to where Kirk Herbstreit declared Penn State was the best student section in the country. Joe didn't have any recruits come up that day. And the reason was they didn't think they had enough staff to be able to handle it. And they were so focused on the Ohio State game. And it's because at that time we didn't have a recruiting staff. And now you have so many people. Like, recruiting is its own staff. I mean, obviously all the coaches recruit and everything, but they have people whose full-time jobs is to be able to handle this stuff. So, yeah, they're more than prepared to have a lot of people up there. Even people that might not be all that interested in us right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because you just want to get everybody and their mother up there. Especially you get mom or dad up there, and mom or dad has a couple more kids on the way. Like, just get everybody. And you never know, some uncle, some coach. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times just having the head coach up there, what that means. You're creating relationships, you're building pipelines. I mean, that's all good stuff. Nothing bad happens from someone visiting a place, especially for the whiteout. So, Kane Jude on YouTube, great podcast so far, guys. You definitely got your act together. Definitely another 5-star performance. We appreciate that as always.
Thanks.
Yeah. Shout out to Jude. Okay, so recruiting's done. And I think, Sean, it's time to maybe put the final touches, the tie the bow on Michigan and move on. If you're cool with being done with Michigan, I think this would be our last final segment on Michigan.
Yeah. You want me to go first?
How about, just to make us feel better, we watch Sean Clifford run and get caught from behind, because I like to watch that, and hope we might get flagged, but whatever, we'll deal with that.
YouTube's watching now. We're on their list, so
I don't care. It'll be worth it. There he goes.
There it is. That's where we sprang the comeback right there.
Yep. You know what, though? And also, we'll watch it one more time so people that didn't see it at the beginning. He does make a guy miss here at the beginning. I know Olu Fashanu helps, but he did kind of make that guy miss a little bit. I think that goes down as half a broken tackle, maybe.
Yeah, and he has more wheels than you think because he ran right by the safety.
Oh, yeah. That safety really, I don't even realize that he had the ball. But
that's true. That's true.
But before we get to that, let me just show, and before you get to what I think your final touches, I do want to show the pick six one more time because this is probably the last time we're going to show the pick six ever again. And it's frustrating because it was such a cool play and it's never going to be thought of, never going to be talked about ever again. So like, this is kind of it. So we're going to enjoy it for what it was. But after this, it's like bury the film and never talk about this game ever again. And this play, if Penn State wins, will be talked about forever. But instead, this pick right here will probably never be discussed in like 5 years from now. So. Yeah.
It was such a bad decision, too, by McCarthy and Harbaugh for even considering a throw there.
Yeah.
It was just total bonehead play all around by Michigan. But, credit to us on that one play. We took advantage.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna let you go on your rant now, sir, or your final thoughts here.
All right. I just want to reiterate what I said Sunday. That's not acceptable how we played. It never will be. I'm not going to be happy with that ever. So, I mean, that's it. Now, it's time to move on, and it's time to regroup and get ready for Minnesota. And I hope Manny Diaz watched the film, Mike Yurcich watched the film, and, they got back in the lab and they figured things out. Like, these guys were brought in to be better than Ricky Ronnie. Upgrade. Be better than, and I like this guy a lot, be better than Brent Pry. Like, these guys were brought in to do that, to be next level coaches. And I think it's fair to say, I think even the biggest Franklin supporters in the world would say, just like Dabo Sweeney, he kind of needs great coordinators. And that's not an insult to James Franklin. That's just his style of coaching. He's a CEO style coach, and he needs great coordinators, and they got to be better. Both of them. Because, I mean, it looked like amateur hour out there on Saturday. And Corey did an excellent job last night on Twitter. That was him, by the way, breaking down the game. And it wasn't just that we were out-muscled. It was guys weren't lined up in the right spot. It was we were running idiotic schemes. It wasn't just that we got pushed around, which we did. It was that we weren't in the right spot. We weren't doing things correctly. Like, it's not too much to ask for us to want Mike Yurcich to call the game correctly, for Manny Diaz to call the game correctly too. That's not too much to ask, to have a good game plan after 2 weeks of preparing. And it's not going to be acceptable, not here. But at the same time, it's not time to panic. It's time to get off the mat, move on, and beat Minnesota.
Well said. Yeah, I appreciate that little love. Yeah, the on Twitter, Hardcore PSUFB, I went through some of the game. Decent amount of game, actually. Probably ended up being about 30 plays or so last night. And so that's on there. I'm not going to sit on here and proclaim that I'm a film expert or anything like that. I just point out things that are pretty obvious. And, like, that's not really how I think football is supposed to be played. So go on there. It's supposed to be more of a discussion. So people that know more, there's some people brought up things that I didn't miss on certain plays. Like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. So it's just another avenue for some of us to kind of talk shop a little bit. So yeah. Sean, I agree with you. We kind of wrap up on Michigan here. I think the biggest thing is what you kind of hinted at, right? When I watched the film again, I disagree with what James Franklin said in his post-press conference. Now, to be fair, Franklin hadn't watched the film yet really himself. So I I'm not going to say like when he looked back at it, he's like, oh yeah, we just stunk. But I disagree that he sort of doubled down on the size a little bit on Tuesday, because the size to me wasn't an issue. In some degree, honestly, Sean, I feel better about the game knowing that we just didn't get bullied, to be honest with you. Because to me, a lot of the alignment issues, although as you know how frustrating they are, and how, to be honest with you, I think Manny Diaz just overthought it. I think he had 2 weeks to prepare and he over-prepared. And because of that, the guys didn't know how to line up. The guys didn't know where to go post-snap, and they were just playing slower. They weren't firing off the ball as much as they usually do. They weren't taking the read steps as linebackers. They weren't doing the things they were doing. And those things can be corrected. That makes me feel a little bit better, because if you're just getting bullied, which they did get bullied some, let's not say they didn't get bullied some, but if you're just lost because they were just straight better than you, like there's not much you can do in the middle of the season just to get stronger. So the fact that, yeah, they got bullied, but really there was times where players were lying. One time, I'm not kidding you, Sean, there were 2 players on the left side of the offense line, from the center to the tackle, half of the box, there's only 2 players. And Michigan actually pulled a guard so that it was basically 5-on-2 on one of those runs by Edwards. So to me, that was the most frustrating part, because I really think Manny Diaz overthought the whole game plan and on defense. But it makes me feel better that those things can get corrected. The next thing that stood out to me when rewatching was Penn State did not play any sort of complimentary football. Well, when Penn State's at their best, that you can literally feel it, right? Like you can literally feel the offense, the defense, and the special teams working together. Even if the offense doesn't score, they pin them deep. Then the defense either gets a safety or they get a stop. The offense gets the ball back at the 40-yard line. They go down the field, they score a touchdown. Everyone's happy. Offense is struggling. Defense gets a turnover, gets them the ball back. That's complimentary football. And up to this point, we had seen that. We saw the opposite of complimentary football on Saturday. Even like when Penn State was struggling offensively, the defense couldn't get off the field themselves to help themselves out. And then when the offense was moving the ball, everyone thinks the offense was completely anemic all day. Like, I'm not saying they were great. I'm not defending them. But they had 3 drives in a row where they sustained drives and gave their defense at least some sort of rest, or at least some sort of reason to believe. The touchdown drive was followed up by a long field goal drive by Michigan. In the second half, right again, the next drive, long field goal drive, honestly probably could have been a touchdown if there was better offensive play calling, but it's still a long field goal drive after the half. Defense gives up an immediate touchdown. Penn State gets the ball back, again, didn't score, but a long sustained drive, turnover downs, quick touchdown by the defense. That's not complimentary football. Offense needs to score touchdowns, needs to convert on a 4th down and 6, but the defense can't come right back and give up a big play. So that was the opposite of what we'd seen so far this year as far as complimentary football. That's something they have to get back to. This offense is not good enough to not get help from the defense. So when we leave a game feeling like the defense played worse than the offense, that's not a recipe for success. And finally, on a positive note, I thought the pass protection did pretty well when I rewatched the game. I was actually came out of the film feeling a lot better as far as the pass protection. That 3rd down and 4 on the second drive was the only glaring, obvious mistake that the pass protection made. In that play, Michigan fooled them. They had the edges on the outside that bailed. Tackles took certain people, and the actual both guards, Wormley and Norzad, both didn't block anybody. Singleton picked up one guy, but it wasn't enough. Clifford had to get rid of the ball too fast. Besides that one play, even on the sack, they did a fantastic job. That sack, they came with 5 rushers. They actually stunted the defensive end and defensive tackle. Fashanu and Norzad passed it off perfectly. Clifford had time to step up, just had nowhere to deliver the football. So overall, pretty happy with how the offensive line protected in the pass game. Obviously, the running game, the run blocking wasn't good at all, or wasn't good enough, especially on that 3rd and 1 at the beginning of the game, where Wormley missed a pretty obvious block, and Fashanu actually missed a little bit of a cut block there as well. So those are my final thoughts, Sean. When I went back and watched it, it's hard to look at all of it. It was really hard looking at the defense because it was the same thing over. It was misalignment. I mean, that 2nd and 4 in that first drive, Sean, they left Roman Wilson wide open. Nobody was in like 5 miles of him. So, and that was the entire game. So that was hard to watch over and over. The defense line did get blown off the ball. I'm not going to say they didn't, but it wasn't. To me, honestly, when it's all said and done, I was more upset watching the linebackers play than I was the defensive line when I rewatched it. The linebackers were all over the place. Jacobs, I said it on Sunday, I thought he played awful. I rewatched the film. He really didn't play good. He was attacking the wrong side, the wrong shoulders of pulling guards. He was getting his nose in business that wasn't his. Elzen was just really slow. King was completely lost, and I mean this with a lot of respect, and I don't know very much about the X's and O's, of course, that the coaches do, but it was pretty glaringly obvious that they were lost at times. So those are the takes I had from looking the game over.
Yeah. The linebackers were in that pile of ineptitude. They were the most inept. None of them played well. They all played badly. Take the pick 6 out, which kind of bounced right to Curtis Jacobs. They did nothing. They were horrible. Were they getting help from the defensive line? They were not. Were they getting help from Manny Diaz? No, they weren't. Which brings me to Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz is the linebackers coach. And they should have looked better by this point in the year. I could take, and we even said during the Purdue game, which, they didn't play that great, but I was willing to give them time because I looked at the schedule. I saw Ohio, I saw Auburn, which I thought was going to be a tough game. I saw Central Michigan, and I saw Northwestern. And I was like, well, there's where they could get better, and then they had the bye week. No, they are not ready for prime time. Not by a long shot.
No, watch King on this play right here. I mean, he just for people that are watching on YouTube. I mean, he was trying to cover for Sutherland if it's a pass, but they literally run right at him, and you're not supposed to be. Yeah, you're not supposed to be moving sideways like that, like when you're a linebacker. But there's no reading going on, and look, like I said, it's his fault on that play, but like he should be prepared. And it just feels like this feels pretty elementary. And like Corey said, neither one of us are film guys. That's not our thing. Follow for the bloggy. But I mean, if you have eyes, just look. I mean, it's not that hard to see. So yeah, and then you go to offense. Big play in the game was that 4th down pass from Clifford to Washington, which was a good throw, but it was a low percentage throw. And, Washington should have it, yes, but to be fair to Parker, I mean, look, this is a tough catch. Yeah, that's a hard catch to make. That is not a play you drop for a 4th down out of a timeout, or I should say call out of it. You just don't. Like, that's a perfect play right there to do something to Brenton Strange. But he only had one catch in the whole game. So, also on you, Mike Yurcich. Yeah, the only final play I wanted to bring up was that offensive pass interference play. Technically the right call. Again, ticky-tacky, but some people on Twitter were saying that, the ball should have came out sooner. And I rewatched it, and I kind of agree with what they're saying here. But I was actually driving home when people were tweeting at us. And I was like, okay, well, let me wait till I get home and actually watch it. And if you break it down, you pause it right here for people that are watching on YouTube. This is one of the benefits of what we can do now. Yeah, it looks like the ball should come out. I believe the thought process by Clifford, I think because he was asked this, and he wasn't sure if this guy right here was going to clear out. So that's why he didn't want to throw it right away, was he was worried the guy that Effner was trying to block. I don't think he was either worried that he was going to cover Singleton or this guy that was coming at his face, if that guy was 100% going to stay committed to him or not. Regardless, in my opinion, Sean, Singleton has to stay flat on this. You can't keep drifting. You can't keep drift. You have plenty of room towards the numbers to stay flat towards the line of scrimmage, parallel to the line of scrimmage, to pick up the first. Plenty of room. No one's over there. And Franklin again reiterated that they went over this play specifically because Indiana got called for it, and I mean he had time to still stay flat there. So I think most of the blame has to go to the running back. It's frustrating that they went over it specifically and it just wasn't executed properly. But yeah, I think Clifford probably could get that ball out faster in hindsight as well.
Yeah, I think Cliff should have threw it fast. It should have threw it before. But yeah, Singleton, like you have to know in the back of your head, just don't go past the line. You could run closer to the boundary. And, he didn't do that. But yeah, that's a mistake that a freshman could make. And, sucks. And I agree with Corey. Like, I don't necessarily even put that much on the on the coaches. I put that more on freshman running back kind of losing track of where he is, and the quarterback has to get the ball out. So.
Yeah. And again, this is the nice thing about having YouTube is we can kind of show some of these plays that we saw. I'm just going to show this one just to frustrate you a little bit, Sean.
Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah, the little fade route for people that are listening on the podcast. When I watched that second fade route, I still don't really know. I mean, he goes there right away. So I'm assuming it's predetermined. If he had one-on-one, he's going to throw it. But it looks like it's cover one across the board. And it looks like, I think it was like it was going to Tinsley the whole way. And so it wasn't even a thought.
Yeah, that's usually how those fades are.
But like, man, if we just don't throw that, I think we have all these tight ends, like you said, for a reason. And in the red zone especially, you maybe want to see them go with something different there.
No, let's run a fade to a 5'11" guy.
I just realized I just disappeared all of a sudden. Let me go to your screen, Sean, as I'm gone.
Oh yeah.
Don't know what happened to me. We'll go to you real quick. Oh, you're gone too.
Oh, this is live YouTube right now.
Yeah.
This is what could happen, which is fine.
Go back. All right, anyway, well, we get that figured out. You're good on this one, though, so that's funny. We'll get that figured out in a second. Sean, I don't know. Well, so we're done. We're moving on from the Michigan game for everybody.
Yes.
That's done. Moved on. Film's over. I should mention the defense watched film together for the first time.
Yeah.
They didn't break up in positioning groups. They watched it together. So that was interesting. Beeman said that they did that just so they could understand the roles of the other players. It wasn't so much like a come to Jesus moment as it was understanding you're doing this because this guy has to do this. Like, Beeman, you can stay in your gap because this linebacker is going to be here, or whatever the case may be. That's what he said. I thought having Akeem Beeman on, by the way, after that week was gutsy, I think, by everybody involved. I think, especially since Franklin kind of called out Beeman. So I respect Beeman for coming on and talking to the beat. But Audrey Snyder asked him straight up about his size and was like, hey, like,
have to.
Which I feel like was kind of messed up. I mean, not from Audrey's perspective, but the fact that was put in, like, that's become his situation all of a sudden, and I don't think that's really fair to him because, I mean, she said, like, are you play, what weight are you playing at? Is that the weight you want to be? He's like, well, I'm playing now, so I mean, yeah, I mean, you can always get a little bit better, is what he said, but like that's the weight I'm playing at, and at the end of the day, he said, quote, it's about your teammates trusting you, and it's about your coaches trusting you, is what he said. So take that for what it will.
Yeah, and Franklin did call him out. He said something along the lines of, there's only been one Aaron Donald in the whole history of football. And Aaron Donald, for those of you who don't know, is an undersized defensive tackle, and he's probably one of the best defensive linemen who ever played the game. But there's only one of those guys. And he kind of he was talking about Hakeem Beeman because Hakeem is undersized. And Corey and I, and Mike actually, who was on last week, we talked about it. And personally, I don't mind a coach calling a player out. But Corey did bring up, and this was a good point, I actually ended up agreeing with him, like the time you do that is in the spring. Because right now, Hakeem Beamon's playing at the weight he's playing. I mean, maybe he could go home and eat a bunch of wings over and gain 7 to 10 pounds in bad weight for the rest of the season. But I don't think anybody really wants that. So what are you going to, I mean, James, like what's he going to do now? So I kind of thought it might have been a frustration thing with Franklin. Like maybe this is a thing that they've talked about behind closed doors, and he tried to tell him, get bigger, and he hasn't been doing it. I mean, and this is speculation now, but maybe that's what it was. And he thought, well, now I'm going to call him out in front of the media, which I don't know. Like I said, you wait till the off season.
Yeah, 100%. And every once in a while when Franklin gets frustrated, I mean, it is what it is. He is a passionate guy, and what I don't understand is the people that say, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but when people say that, like, oh, it's nice to see Franklin actually cares, like, I have never questioned Franklin's, like, caring. Like, the dude after the Ohio State game went and cussed out a student in the crowd because he was so frustrated that they lost that game. Like, I will never challenge how much Franklin cares. The dude cares a lot about winning. Like, the dude cares about being great. He cares about Penn State football. That, to me, has never been the question. And I think sometimes that gets him in trouble because he cares so much and he's so passionate. And in these post games, when Franklin's just as frustrated, if not more frustrated than we are, can you imagine how frustrated he is? And I think he just kind of honestly said things he probably shouldn't have said, or at least to the extent of which he said them. And he got himself in a position where you can't really walk your way out of that one. You can't come back on Tuesday and say what I just said and say, no, I don't think it really was the size, because then you're calling out your defensive coordinator. So it's one of the ones you just kind of eat the bullet. And he's not wrong to say they could get bigger, because of course everyone could get bigger. But yeah, I love Franklin because he is passionate, right? But in those moments, you almost wish they could, just I'm sure everyone just kind of wishes you just take a second just to kind of breathe, because maybe something like that happened behind closed doors, and now like that's just at the front of his mind when something like that gets popped up. So who knows how it all went down, but it is what it is. And again, I watched the film and I didn't think the size was the main issue. I hadn't been the main issue for Penn State so far this season. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But no, I respected Beeman for having the interview today. If that wasn't deep enough for you yet, Sean, are you ready to talk Drew Aller and Sean Clifford?
Oh, let's go. Round 60.
I don't know. I just keep putting again when I like tweet out the episode. I just put Aller versus Clifford again every single time. Just Aller versus Clifford again. I'm gonna throw up on the YouTube channel, and I'll read it on the podcast as well for people that are listening. Which, by the way, just so everyone knows, last week's episode, or this Sunday's episode, was the best episode we've ever had of Hardcore Penn State Football. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I mean, we really thought that maybe it would take a hit because, Penn State lost the game, maybe lost a little bit of that momentum. But maybe you guys were just ready to hear Sean and I complain. So, anywho, Drew Aller, Sean Clifford. Before I start, or before you start, I'm going to start with what Franklin had to say, because this is what kind of blew everything up on Twitter this week. We both said to start the week on Sunday that if Clifford was 100%, we expected him to start. And again, we kind of said exactly what Franklin ends up saying here. Penn State only has one loss. He still gives you the best chance to win, but that leash is obviously getting shorter the more losses that Penn State takes. Very clear, people. If Penn State has multiple losses heading into November, especially if they get can open like the way they did against Michigan to Ohio State, we are very much on the getting Drew Aller ready for 2023. That's not something we're debating. We're not debating the concept. I think the problem is when people want that to happen. So with that being said, this is the question from Corey Geiger on Tuesday. And I respect this question. And so I'm just going to shut up and just read the thing. Probably football in general, everybody likes to talk about the backup quarterback. That's just a generality thing. Generally, I don't even know what he said there. General thing. There's a lot of people now that would want to see Drew, both media, fans, everybody. What would you say to those people that are calling for a possible change at this point? End quote. And that was from Corey Geiger. First of all, Corey, you didn't ask me or Sean's perspective because we're not everybody. And this leads me to believe that James Franklin listens to our podcast because he comes back and says, quote, again, I don't agree with this statement, everybody. And I literally wish he would have stood up and said, because I listen to Hardcore Penn State Football, and those two knuckleheads say, not just yet. Wait a second. Anyway, quote, but I guess there is a lot of different things that I would say. I think, number one, that's the wrong message. That's the wrong signal. Sean has earned the right to be on the field. That doesn't mean that Drew hasn't done some good things. We would love to get him an opportunity and continue to grow and develop him for his future. Oh, wait, did I read that wrong? Oh, it's a question. Would we love to get him the opportunity to grow and develop him for the future? No doubt about it. It's just interesting. We kind of talked about the whole dynamics of college football and how it's changed, and specifically at Penn State. But I got a text from Mike Gesicki on Sunday when I was breaking down film, and in 2016 we lost to Michigan and played Minnesota the following week and found a way to get that win. The rest of the season went pretty well, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So I think are tons of examples, not only at Penn State, but across the country, where you do everything you possibly can to win the next week. I think some of these approaches, regarding what Corey Geiger had to say, aren't necessarily about winning this week, in my opinion, end quote. Sean, that got me fired up, so I'm going to take the helm on this one if it's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, let me see if I can get rid of this thing before we switch over to me here. That went away pretty quickly that time. All right. So the first thing about this is exactly what James Franklin has to say. I mean, you're a head football coach. You're 5-1. You got two massive games coming up against Minnesota and Ohio State. You gotta say what you said as far as setting the right signal and Drew Aller doing good things in practice, but not necessarily saying that we're going to just play for the future in 2023. You can't just say the season's over and we're just going to prepare for 2023. On top of that, what kind of pressure or what does that say about Drew Aller if you just come out and say he's not good enough to start? So I think you're putting him Franklin in a poor position to say something bad either about Clifford or Aller, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. But the real most important part about it is, and maybe it seemed cryptic at the time, but it's pretty clear what he was saying there. Again, we talked about this already, Sean. He says what he means to say on press conferences for a reason. Sometimes you got to dig through it a little bit, but he says what he means to say. And it's very clear what James Franklin was trying to say here. Number one, we are a 5-1 team. I know we just got our doors blown off by Michigan, but we have been in a similar situation before, and we have turned things around. And I don't know if you guys have forgotten, but that was a roller coaster ride in 2016, a.k.a. you guys were booing me at halftime in the Minnesota game. And then by the end of the season, you were saying I was one of the better coaches in the country, and you're hoping I didn't leave you. So, just because we have a loss does not mean the season's over. And I'm not about to bench my 6-year quarterback that has been through the ringer and has earned it, not just from a practice perspective, but from an on-field performance perspective too, when you consider his whole body of work, just to prepare for the 2023 season. He likes Drew Aller. He thinks Drew Aller is going to be great. But it is not the time and the place. And that is exactly what Sean and I have been telling you guys from the beginning. I feel like I kept that pretty clean for once.
Yes, very succinct. Yeah. Again, this is a good example of knowing what to look for in a James Franklin answer. And he also mentioned later in the press conference that a lot of undefeated teams lost this past week. I think 6 of them did, including Alabama. Is Alabama going to bench Bryce Young to prepare for next year? No. Because, and now I know you'll say, oh, we're not Bama, Sean. True, but you don't want to send that message to your team. That's what it's about, because, okay, maybe we can't win the national championship, and Bama could. I mean, I'm just being real. I don't think this team's going to win a national championship. Of course not. But we could go 10-2. I think we have a good chance to be 6-1, and we have Ohio State for a whiteout. So no, I mean, it's not time to look to next year. I mean, it's just like this defeatist mentality that a certain portion of the fan base has, and it's annoying. It's just why are you like that? And look, a lot of people don't like James Franklin. They blame him for everything. They don't like Sean Clifford. They blame him for everything. And I mean, whatever. James Franklin ain't a perfect coach. Sean Clifford ain't a perfect quarterback. But the reality is, and your personal feelings about James Franklin and Sean Clifford aside, we're 5-1 and we have a chance to go 6-1, and then we take on Ohio State. We'll see what happens there. And it sounds like Franklin pretty much agrees with us. Now, the whole earn this right, or earn the right to play,
completely got blown out of proportion.
Yes, and I think that's what people kind of lost their minds about, because I think they interpreted it as we owe Sean Clifford. And I don't think that's what he meant at all. I think he meant he earned it on the field. Because if he said we owe Sean Clifford for his time here, I would totally disagree with that. I would. Because the truth is, no, you don't owe Sean Clifford. Good guy, for sure. Did a lot with NIL. Has been a good quarterback, in my opinion, for Penn State. You don't owe him the starting job. You don't owe anybody. No. But he didn't say that. That's the whole thing, and it's getting interpreted as saying that, and it's not what he said. He meant he earned it on the field, and that's why everybody plays on Saturday, because they earned it in practice or they earned it in previous games, and really it's some combination of that. They've earned it on the field. So no, it's important that we have that distinction, because I think that's the main thing people had a problem with.
It's funny. You know what the icing on the cake was for this entire week, though, Sean? Was Caden Wallace was interviewed after Franklin tonight. And what did Caden Wallace have to say about Drew Aller? Quote, not there yet, but is, quote, getting there as a quarterback. Close the book.
That's the guy in the room, guys. He's in the room.
Not only is it a guy in the room, it's a guy who's been there for a long time and has, I mean, I'm not saying Caden Wallace is the dude of all dudes, but he's a dude and he's seen a lot. And he's seen, I mean, just think about how many different quarterbacks Caden Wallace has seen in practice. I mean, Caden Wallace, a lot of guys have come and left since Caden Wallace has been there. Backups that never even played for Penn State. Backups that tried to take Clifford's job, Caden Wallace has seen. So the fact that I trust Caden Wallace a lot more than I trust half the people that are tweeting at us all the time. But to me, that was a nail in the coffin. That, to me, like between Franklin's comments and between Caden Wallace's comments, I feel like that's all the support we need, Sean. I feel like, I wake up in the morning and I'm not sure if I should have cereal or an egg sandwich, and I might contemplate that the rest of the day, whether I made the right decision. I think we got the decision pretty clear right in front of us. Sean Clifford, if healthy, 100% should be the guy. No ifs and buts about it. Now, if they lose to Minnesota, we can have that conversation. I'm not ready to have that conversation. And I think, honestly, Sean, because Franklin made a point about it. He said, it's hard to insulate the players from the fan base. And he didn't really go deep into what that was all about. But basically, guys, your negativity does influence things. And maybe not as much as I'm going to make it seem. But I really believe that the way you guys act on social media, and Paul Clifford in our interview later does a good job of talking about how people on Twitter are not how they are in real life. And I hope Penn State football players see that. Especially people like Sean Clifford see that. But I'm telling you guys, the negative energy you guys have provided, in my opinion, it makes a difference. And so help me God, if you guys go out in that whiteout and they list Sean Clifford as a starting quarterback and you boo that man in a whiteout, and he's for the stuff he's, you might not like him as a starting quarterback, but for what he's been through and given as far as his literally body on the line, to me, that's messed up. And also, it will look bad with the whatever countless recruits we just read off. So I hope better, but I expect worse when it comes to people behaving themselves in those environments. So
yeah, and it's like on Twitter, and there's a common saying, Paul Clifford said it, Twitter isn't real life, which is true. I mean, look at any topic, whether it's about sports or politics or anything. These people wouldn't be talking like this if they were in real life. No. I try to say on Twitter what I would say in real life, and I think I do a pretty good job of it. Because it's pretty much all stuff that I've said here,
right?
Or in person. Like, guys, I think there are some people in media that are completely different when the camera's off. I am not different at all. I am the same person. You could ask Corey, you could ask Mike. I am the same person. I have the same opinions. I talk the same. It's who I am. And I think a lot of people aren't that way. They're social butterflies on Twitter. They got a big mouth on Twitter, and they would never say any of this stuff to anybody.
Nope.
Not to the players, not even to their friends, because their friends would tell them they sound like idiots if they heard them the way they talk.
Sean,
if they have good friends.
Yeah, I literally read some of the comments that we were getting to Maddie, and she was laughing. She said, "What is wrong with some of these people?" Like, she was literally like laughing hysterically at some of the stuff that we were getting. And again, it's not everybody, and this isn't about like our Twitter, but I think it's a good point. Whatever we're tweeting, and whether it's you or me on Twitter, it's literally 99% of the time. I wish I just would have this whole episode recorded, or I should just copy our episode every time in our tweets, because we are not saying anything new on Twitter that we're putting onto our podcast or vice versa. Like, literally, it's the same message across the board. When I get into bed, or I'm brushing my teeth and talking about Penn State football, or if I'm texting my grandpa, whatever the case may be, the message is the same, and the way we present that message is no different. The only difference between a podcast and just Sean and I talking is that there's cameras and live YouTube right now. Otherwise, the conversation we're having is no different, and I really think people need to get back to that.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, though, I think it is what it is, and that's what social media has become. I think the idea of social media was a good one, because the whole idea of everybody getting a voice is good. I believe in democracy. I believe in everybody having a voice, but sometimes I wish people had laryngitis. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, it's just insufferable. And it's too bad. It's too bad that people totally change who they are when, they have a cell phone and they have a Twitter account. And then on Saturday, like you said, I want to talk about the booing too. It's the same thing, because they're booing from the 70th row, and they're probably saying Clifford sucks and he effing. Would you say that to Sean Clifford's face? Would you tell him that? I really believe if I talked to Manny Diaz and Mike Yurcich, I would say the same exact thing to them. If they came on here and interviewed them, I would say the same exact thing. Because I'm not a wuss. I'm not a big talker. I'm not I'm that's just not who I am.
And we're not insulting them personally, right?
No,
like
I think Manny Diaz is probably a fine guy, and like
I would love to hang out with
all
Manny
this
Diaz. Yeah.
Yeah, come on, Manny. But we will challenge you. We will criticize you. I will not. I'm not. But I wouldn't say anything different than I've said to Corey, because that's a punk move when you do stuff like that. When you're yelling when they can't hear you, and it's just ridiculous. And these guys are. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't. I don't want to spend
so much.
I don't want to spend forever.
Yeah, this is a tangent, and we went on far enough on it.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I would love to have somebody with film knowledge, lead us in the right direction as far as different things. And I loved learning. And so I would totally be like, hey, Corey, when you called out Kobe King for a certain play, that really wasn't his fault. He was actually doing, that'd be great to know.
Of course.
But we're not saying Kobe King's a bad person or Kobe King sucks or Kobe. That's the whole different. And I actually try on Twitter sometimes. I'm like, just like I like someone said something to us the other day, and I was like, why did you even have to say that last part? Like, I was ready to have a willing conversation. Like, we do a good job, even if we disagree with you. Like, we communicate. Like, we're not mad. Like, we'll explain our perspective, and if you disagree, that's fine. We can have that conversation. And I want to give a positive light to this too. So the first guy was like, blah blah blah, you suck, and then whatever insult. And I was like, why did you even have to do that? But then someone else said, I really appreciate what you guys do. I really like what you guys do, but I disagree with what you said. And I was like, not enough people do stuff like that. So we actually retweeted him, and that was cool to see.
Yeah, we don't have the corner of the truth on the truth here. And we're not like, we think you should listen to a lot of different podcasts. Don't just listen to our opinion, because that's we're not right about everything. Listen to
ours first.
Yeah, definitely listen to us. But listen to a bunch of people, though, because there's a lot of good content out there. And there are people who are going to disagree with us and could do so in a respectful way. If you just want Drew Aller to start and you think we're wrong, fine. That's fine. If you think, I don't know, Manny Diaz actually didn't call that bad of a game, cool. But, just you could be respectful, and you could be a good person and a decent person and not crude. And we could have a real dialogue, because that's what we want to do here, guys.
It's just funny to me. Like, I don't take it personally or anything, but some of the stuff y'all say, like, oh my Lord, it's sometimes pretty creative, but it's impressive. We got a game on Saturday here, Sean. Minnesota. And rowing their boat all the way from Minnesota. I don't think you could even take it. I guess you'd go across the lakes, and then I don't know how you would be able to get a canoe all the way over, but probably I don't think it would happen. You need an ice age or something.
Very inconvenient, yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, the Golden Gophers, for a little bit there, we thought maybe Minnesota was going to come into this game undefeated. That's really not the case. They've suffered 2 losses now. Not a great day against Purdue a couple weeks ago. I think Tanner Morgan ended up throwing 3 interceptions. They lost to Purdue at home. And then they came back a little bit later last week. They just lost to Illinois. Tanner Morgan got banged up in that game. Right now, from what I've read, and it's not very much out there, I would put it as like a 50-50 that Tanner Morgan plays. It sounds like, they haven't said specifically, but it sounds like he's in concussion protocol. And PJ Fleck is saying the exact same things that James Franklin said about Theo Johnson, in my opinion. Like, it had the same exact vibe. Like, oh, he looks good, but it's kind of up to our staff. Like, to me, that's very much concussion-ish stuff. And obviously the hit looked like a concussion thing, but we're not obviously medical professionals. Minnesota's a team, Sean, that we were interested in, before the season started. We thought, in the Big Ten West being as ugly as it is, that maybe they could even win it. With the loss to Purdue and loss to Illinois, they're going to need a lot of help to get back into it, but it's still possible. Unfortunately for Penn State, they're going to be challenged again in the run defense department. Minnesota, probably not as great of an offensive line as they were in 2019 when Penn State played them. That offensive line was really freaking good. But this offensive line's not too shabby either. And most importantly, the guy I'm excited to see, I really think he's a top 5, top 10 running back in the country, in Mo Ibrahim. It was a shame he got hurt last year with that torn Achilles. I'm excited to watch him play. It's scary now because, well, obviously Penn State looks susceptible to giving up big plays. But I'm excited to see Mo Ibrahim play. I think he's one of my favorite running backs in the country. And yeah, this offense is going to be a challenge if Tanner Morgan doesn't go. The backup, I'm going to mess up this dude's name so bad. Ethan Kalakamenis?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Something like that. He hasn't, just throw this out there, Sean. He has not started a football game since 2019. Hasn't started a football game since he's a redshirt freshman. His 2020 year was obviously canned because of COVID. And so he has not started a game since his junior year of high school. That's the guy who came in for Morgan in the Illinois game. He was a 4-star quarterback, pretty promising, probably as far as raw athleticism goes and quarterback skills, probably better than Tanner Morgan. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in a whiteout environment if he does get the nod, Sean.
Yeah, like you said, 4-star guy from Illinois originally. And yeah, it's never a good thing to have to go into a game with the starter that hasn't started in years in maybe the most hostile environment of all of college football. I hear what you're saying on Mo Ibrahim. I think their whole season changed last year when he got hurt opening night. I think he had an Achilles injury. So it's good to see him playing at a high level. One of their best receivers, Chris Ottman-Bell, he's actually out for the season. So that's a big loss for them. So they've been hit with the injury bug a little bit the past couple of years. But I think this is a solid team. Their offense does, frankly, a lot of what Michigan does. And they're kind of a knockoff Walmart brand Michigan. And I don't really mean that too insultingly. That I think that they do a lot of what Michigan does. They just don't have the horses to do it quite as efficiently as Michigan does. Yeah,
and we should probably get to who is leading that charge, and that's, of course, former Penn State offensive coordinator Kirk Ciarrocca. Ciarrocca was at Minnesota in 2019 when they beat Penn State. Then he came over in 2020 and then went back this past year, or 2 years ago, I guess I should say. Kirk Ciarrocca was asked about all of this. He said he has no bad feelings, ill feelings for Franklin or Penn State. But he was honest. He said it obviously didn't go the way we wanted it to, or I wanted it to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a Pennsylvania guy originally. So
yes,
I'm sure he probably in his heart really wanted to excel at Penn State. And so that, I got no issue with Kirk Ciarrocca as a person. Honestly, I think if there was a better running game, he would have been really successful. He just didn't have the horses on the offensive line to really help what he wanted to establish. And that's just too bad because I think he's a good offensive coordinator. And if karma is on anyone's side, it's probably on Minnesota's side. The way Penn State kind of threw him out the door in order to get Yursich, who they thought was an upgrade. And so far, Yursich really hadn't been that much of an upgrade. So maybe karma's already started. But regardless, I got to imagine Kirk Ciarrocca. Franklin even said it. He straight up acknowledged it. He said, Ciarrocca knows how we do things. He knows our personnel. He knows how we prepare. He knows a lot of our stuff. Franklin didn't hide behind any of that. But he also said, we know a lot about Kirk Ciarrocca. So it's going to be a fun battle, but I would be I wouldn't be very surprised if The Rock has some tricks up his sleeve in this one, especially if you got a younger quarterback where you can't stick to your normal game plan. We haven't really seen Penn State get out-tricked on a trick play or anything yet this year, so probably going to happen this week against Minnesota, now that I said that.
You think we'll see a lot of quarterback powers this week?
Yeah, I think we're going to see powers. I think we're going to see RPOs. I think we're going to see I guess My biggest question, Sean, really about this
Is Will
offense-
Levis going to come play for them for the week?
He might. I mean, they actually have another quarterback too, which I don't have his name in front of me, that could play some. Wasn't available for them for the Illinois game, so they got another guy there. That could play as well. But no, I caught your drift of what you're saying. But when I look at this Minnesota offense, even if Tanner Morgan starts, my question, I mean, it comes back to the same thing with Michigan, like you said, right? Like, if they make Minnesota play from behind, Tanner Morgan threw 3 interceptions to Purdue. So I'm feeling pretty good if Penn State can get a lead. The question is, can they slow down this Minnesota run game? And if they can't, Shiraka is going to RPO the Penn State linebackers to death. I mean, it's going to be ugly if they can't get the run game slowed down.
Yeah, and in the offseason, I actually called Tanner Morgan a one-year wonder. And I sort of feel the same because this year he hasn't been overly impressive. But he played well against us in 2019. But I think it's a lot of the same thing, even though that was a close game. This Michigan game was a blowout. Everything was going well for them. They were on schedule the whole game. It never really felt like their offense was sputtering. And it felt like, even though we almost won the game, it felt like they were in control most of that game. And give him credit, he executed. So, yeah, but I do want to talk about Shiraka a little bit because I was joking around. In all honesty, I think he's a pretty good coordinator. I didn't think he was horrible here. I thought he was a little predictable at times, but I think that's kind of he's kind of that kind of coordinator in that, like, there's some coordinators that run a bunch of different plays. There's some offenses that show you a bunch of different looks. And sometimes, guys, they suck because they overextend themselves. What Kirk Shiraka wants to do is keep things simple. And that could work. You could run the same 6 or 7 plays the whole game, but if you're giving different looks, if you're running them well, they're going to work. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's kind of who Kirk Shiraka is. And that could work. Now, in 2020, he was at a disadvantage. Number 1, the pandemic happened, so he didn't have spring practice. Number 2, the pandemic happened, so he didn't have a summer practice. Number 3, he didn't have Journey Brown, and that really, really hurt us. And number 4, Noah Kane got hurt. So those are 4 things that have absolutely nothing to do with Kirk Shiraka that already kept his hand tied behind his back. So I felt bad for Kirk Shiraka that didn't work out here because I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he's actually a decent offensive coordinator. And the reason he was fired was because James Franklin wanted to hire Mike Yurcich. And I mean, at the time I was fine with it because Mike Yurcich has a great has a great reputation, but we know it hasn't really worked out for us so far with Mike Yurcich.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say a bunch. No, I agree with everything you said there. I was just looking back at my old notes from the summer. Wanted to reiterate what you said about Morgan being a one-hit wonder, kind of. Threw 30 touchdowns in 2019, then threw 17 in 2020 and 2021 combined. So almost half the amount in 2 years from that 1 year, which is just nuts to me. I have the stat that Minnesota was 17-2 when completing 60% of their passes before 2022 started. I'm not sure where that's at now, but to me that's just an insane stat that if they can, complete 60% or more of their passes, they're 17-2. I think the offense is going to be limited. I mean, to be honest with you, like, they don't have any pass catchers that scare me. They have less weapons on the outside than Michigan, which to me is the only real credible reason why Manny didn't want to bring more guys in the box, is if he just didn't think that our guys could be up to the challenge against Michigan with Roman Wilson, Ronnie Bell, etc. There's even less of a reason, with all due respect, to do that against to not do that versus Minnesota. Like, there's no reason that you don't have 8 guys in the box from the get-go and you dare whoever the quarterback is to beat you. I would just simply say, like, Minnesota's going to beat us, but I'm not letting Mo Ibrahim get over 100 yards. Like, I'm just saying that right now. Like, that's to me how I'd be thinking this entire game. Like, I am not letting Minnesota getting the running game going. If they're going to win, they're going to win because their quarterback has decided to play like Tim Tebow in the playoffs versus Steelers. Like, that's what it's going to need to take, right? So that's how I feel about the offense. They lost some offensive linemen last year. They had the Notre Dame transfer at offensive tackle. They got a Michigan transfer at guard. Their center, Schmitz, really good player as well. So they got some big guys. Like, let's not say this guy's bad. So if you don't believe anything I said about the size thing and you're worried a lot about the size, then you should be worried about the size again this weekend because Penn State is going to be undersized. In my personal opinion, I think we're going to realize that maybe it wasn't so much about just straight up raw power, that maybe we just overthought things a little bit. But we'll see a little bit more, obviously, here. I guess defensively, I just want to see them trust the secondary a little bit more, Sean. I just want them to say, you know what, our guys are better than you outside. We're gonna trust them on islands, and we're just gonna be all. You might make the first guy miss, but we're just gonna swarm you. We're just gonna put as many guys we can around the football, and we're just gonna get in your way. So that's my thought on the Minnesota offense versus the Penn State defense.
Yeah, it would be super deflating if, after we, got rocked by Michigan, if we got shellacked by Minnesota, doing very, very similar things. Like, you'd be like, what? Like, that's what you got out of it? But on the flip side, maybe we looked, and maybe Manny Diaz sees a lot of what we see, and he's like, oh, they do a lot of what Michigan does. So let's get this corrected this week, because I think most of the stuff could be corrected. It's just better gap discipline. It's things like that. Like, these are elementary things, and linebackers reading the play. Like, that's stuff that could definitely be corrected, because those are mental things. And maybe it took getting, embarrassed to really focus them on this stuff. And I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, what are we doing here, Manny? I mean, so yeah, it's another good offensive line. And we got to be ready for it, because they're big dudes too. And we got to be, and the other thing is, like, the defensive lines in the James Franklin era, they've never been huge. Like, we had guys, Shaka Toney wasn't big, and he was an end, but, that's just not, it's not like
Kevin Givens.
Kevin Givens, good example. He was Anthony Zettel. I mean, these were not huge, brooding guys. We had some of them, but in general, the size isn't that much different than in previous years under Franklin. And look, we went to Kinnick twice and beat them. We beat Minnesota in 2016. Now, it was a different coach, but they ran a little bit.
PJ Mustipher was there in that one game in Kinnick as well. They had a great game. And it was not the same size as he is now.
Right, yeah. So James Franklin's never lost to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is, I mean, they're the gold standard at running this stuff these days. So,
and they literally, and that's a great point, Sean. Like, they literally, how many plays did Wisconsin run against Penn State last year? Like, a stupid amount of plays against that pretty much the same defensive line. And they held up fine. I mean, okay, and AK wasn't great against the run, so I don't want to hear that argument.
Nah, AK was small too.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going backwards, but we're going forwards to go backwards.
Right. Yeah. There's a point to all of this, and the point is we could correct a lot of this stuff, and the size is largely an excuse. So let's not make excuses, and let's just do our best.
Yeah, look at that motivating speech from Sean Kane.
That's right.
I did want to highlight, before we switch over, their third down conversion percentage at 66.2%. It's a little bit inflated because of some of the teams they've played, but still, that's really good.
So impressive. Yeah.
I mean, you can't really make that number up. So now, again, if that tells me anything, it tells me they stay on schedule really well, which is what Michigan did very well against Penn State last week. That passing per attempt, that yards per attempt, being at 8.9 just blows my mind. And I think I don't really have an explanation for why that number is one of the best in the country. I don't know if it's just screens or high percentage throws that are just, I don't know what. I'm guessing it's probably just high percentage throws. And that yards per attempt stays up if you don't have a lot of really bad incompletions. So that, I guess, is my guess there. I also wanted to point out they've had 9 giveaways on offense so far this year. And again, not against really great competition. Like Illinois, good defense. Purdue, pretty good defense. But that's it. And they have 9 giveaways already this season. Yeah, just want to point that out because Penn State 13 takeaways on the year already. So if you're looking for some sort of, Josh Pate would call a padlock stat, I think turnover margin might be your friend in this one. If you're a Minnesota fan, you're thinking third down might be the reason in this one. So let's flip it over to the other side, Sean. What do you think as far as Minnesota defense versus Penn State offense?
Decent defense. Decent. Let's see. Yeah. And look, starts with us. We got to be better on the ground. We have to go back to what's made us successful, and that's, James Franklin was asked, what the identity of the offense is, and he was actually kind of direct with it. He was like, "Well, what we want it to be is run the ball and play action." So that's what we need to happen here. Yeah, Minnesota's defense, like I said, definitely. Yeah, they're all right. I mean, they struggled last week, but they held Purdue, I believe, to 20 points. So not too shabby there. Yeah, so 9 takeaways. I mean, not what we have, but that's still pretty good for this point in the season. And third down conversion at 22%. I think that's pretty good. And their passing yards per attempt against is similar to Penn State's. So, yeah, gotta, like I said, they're just, I can't believe how similar they are to Michigan. Like, they're similar, but they're just not as talented. So, this is what's known as a get better week. So, let's get better.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the Penn State defense. 13 takeaways on the year so far, 21 last year. So 8 away from getting past the amount they had last year. Even in a loss to Michigan last week, they still had one. Probably could have had another. Yeah, I think to me, Sean, Minnesota's defense was top 10 last year. They lost some coaches. They lost 7 players on the defensive line. That's hard to come back from. They lose Jack Gibbons at linebacker. They're going to sorely miss him. They have sorely missed him. The secondary, I think, is actually really good. One of the better secondaries Penn State's going to face this year. Newbin's really good at safety. Howden's really good at safety. Both of those guys had a lot of tackles last year. Justin Wally had 7 pass breakups last year. They got a little bit of question mark at the other corner spot, but overall, I think the secondary is actually maybe the strength of this team, which is saying something. It's a reason why Purdue kind of ran the ball to beat Minnesota and didn't throw the ball, which is saying something for Jeff Brom to commit to the ground game. And I don't even think they had King Doberu in the game when they ran all over Purdue, which is saying ran all over Minnesota, which is saying something too. So I think if you're looking for a get-right game for Penn State as far as the running game goes, I think this is an opportunity. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think there's an opportunity here where maybe Katron Allen can break them up a little bit, get them uncomfortable, and Nick Singleton can kind of smooth them over like butter. I don't think it's going to necessarily be easy, but I think it's important that they find a way to establish the run in this game, because this is an opponent. It's not Central Michigan, it's not Ohio, but as far as Big Ten teams go, I think they should be able to, if they want to get to that 10-win season.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Like, this is a team that if you're worth your salt, you should beat. And like, Purdue beat them. And look, like Corey said, Minnesota's secondary, pretty impressive. I mean, they forced Aiden O'Connell to have two interceptions. I mean, we've been intercepting everybody this year, not him. So, that's a big credit to Minnesota's defense. And yeah, it's time to get right, and it's time to do what teams with guts and that are worth your salt do after big losses, and that's get up off the mat. So, definitely a good opportunity to do that, and
yeah, I wanted to mention.
Not good.
No, I wanted to mention in that third down conversion percentage, Minnesota holding their opponents at 22%. Penn State's one of the worst in the country on third down. I think you could argue one of the reasons why that Michigan game got so lopsided. I mean, you look at that Michigan game, 3rd and 1, didn't get. 3rd and 4 after that offsides penalty, didn't get. You had a 3rd and 4 in the red zone. Well, actually, they didn't convert the 3rd and goal. They actually converted on 4th and goal to score the touchdown. So they didn't convert on that. Then they were 3rd and 4 in the red zone when they kicked the field goal. Obviously didn't get that. And then they were 3rd and 4 on the offensive pass interference, which turned into a 3rd and 19, which they obviously didn't get. But then they didn't get the 4th and 6 either. You get what I'm saying? They haven't been great on third down. That statistic is probably pretty accurate at this point. And Minnesota is not giving up very many third downs. So you want to stay on schedule in the running game because I think you'll have more success, but you also want to get the running game going because it will help you in third down, which is something that Penn State really hasn't been good in. And I think, Sean, you'll agree with me when I say one of the reasons they've struggled on third down is A, they haven't got the ball to the tight ends enough, and B, they don't have a go-to wide receiver that they can give the ball to on third down that they feel great about. They try to go to Parker Washington on that 4th and 6 we showed earlier, and it wasn't successful. You think if you have a Jahan Dotson in that situation, you feel a lot better in these third down situations. So, the receiving core. Someone asked Franklin today, or today, maybe it was even Tuesday, about like who's to blame for the lack of the passing game downfield. Is it Clifford? Is it the receivers? And he took it's everybody. And people are going to think we're huge just Clifford supporters, but I don't think Yurcich has really thrown very many, which means I don't think he has a lot of confidence in it, and that's in the receivers and the quarterback. But I haven't seen any receivers really show me that they can catch those. Trey Wallace catching that one the other day was like the Titanic old lady meme. Like, it's been 84 years. I mean, like, when's the last time we threw that ball? And I'm trying to think, the Mitch Tinsley catch against Auburn, like on the right sideline, like that was a relatively deep ball. Like that was like 20, 25 yards. It wasn't crazy, but it was something. That was maybe
Northwestern, the Parker.
Oh yeah, and the Northwestern one. So we've had a couple, but even Sean Clifford. I'm not saying Sean Clifford's the best, but even for Sean Clifford's standards, that's lower than what it has been. So, I mean, Clifford was throwing bombs to Dotson. Clifford has thrown bombs to KJ Hamler before. Not at the same clip that McSorley was doing it at, but even for Clifford's standards, it's been lower this year. And I think that's honestly a knock to me on the receivers because the pass protection's been there. I mean, we can no longer sit here, Sean, and say the reason why they're not throwing the ball deep or that yards per attempt isn't gone up is because of the offensive line. Because, again, they have given him time. He has stepped up more in the pocket this year, in my opinion, and delivered passes. So it comes to me back on the receivers at the end of the day. I'm not saying Clifford's going to hit all of them if they're open, but he hasn't even felt that they're open enough to throw the ball, which maybe he just needs to take more chances. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Look, this whole thing came about this year, and even from Clifford, like, detractors really had it. The whole idea that Clifford can't throw the deep ball, I think that's a new thing, because he had been throwing the deep ball. Do we remember 2019? For KJ Hamler deep a ton. And now, did he hit all of them? No, but he hit a lot of them. 2020 and 2021. Threw the Dotson deep a lot. Threw the Parker Washington deep a lot. I mean, Parker, got to be better. But when he had Jahan Dotson, when he had KJ Hamler, yeah, he was able to complete those passes. And I think it's more the receivers aren't getting open. And like you said, I don't think Mike Yurcich trusts Sean Clifford or the receivers enough to make those plays happen downfield. Now, look, we got to be real about Cliff. I mean, he's an average quarterback. We've said that over and over again. You look at his stats; they're very pedestrian this year, and that's not all on the receivers. It's not all on Mike Yurcich. It's also on Sean Clifford. I mean, we can't just blame everything on everybody else. That's not what we do here. He's got to be better too. But it's also not on the offensive line this year. The offensive line has been good in pass protection really every game since the Purdue game. The Purdue game, they had some issues, but I could safely say, Joe saying you get better between week 1 and week 2. They did. They got better. Linebackers have not gotten better. The offensive line, they get better. And they have kept Sean Clifford's pocket clean. Look at the fourth down play to Washington. That pocket is perfect. I mean, they blocked that on pass the pass protection is exactly what you want. The pass is what you want. Problem is, that play shouldn't have been called. And Parker Washington, it would have been a difficult catch, but he should have made the catch. And because Parker's got to be better. I mean, there's no question about it. Like, I had such high hopes for him this year, and he just hasn't delivered. And I think he's capable of more, and we're going to need him. We are going to need him these last, how many games do we have left? 6. We're going to need him these last 6 games. Like I said, I think he's capable of it, but he's got to deliver, because he has big play ability. He has, crazy catch ability, and we just haven't been seeing it.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of good way to round that out. Right now, just looking at the numbers, Washington 23 catches, 318 yards. Tinsley 24 catches, 282 yards. Strange 16 catches, 240 yards. So although they're balanced between those 3 guys, that's about it. Actually, at this point, I know Keandre Lambert-Smith was banged up a little bit, but Trey Wallace 9 catches, 143. Keandre Lambert-Smith 9 catches, 104. So they're dead even right now. You take out that Purdue game, I don't really know if Keandre Lambert-Smith has done anything. So just kind of pay attention to that, but no one's really stepped up yet. And I don't really know who is. That's the scary part for me, Sean. It's like Dotson had shown glimpses of it. Keandre Lambert-Smith had shown glimpses too, but we just haven't seen it really come to fruition yet. So,
yeah. Same thing with Trey Wallace.
Yeah, Trey Wallace too, but Trey Wallace has a longer, he's got time still to prove. Keandre Lambert-Smith, in my opinion, the time is now. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. So, okay, so before we keep going towards our predictions here for the Penn State Minnesota game, we're going to take a pause. Well, we're not pausing, but if you're on a podcast, we're now going to put in our interview with Paul Clifford or do our Big Ten Pick'em. If you're on YouTube, obviously we're going to stay live. So if you want to hear the Big Ten Pick'em, I think we ended up talking to Paul for about 30 minutes. Highly recommend it. You should definitely check it out on wherever you're listening to podcasts. He gives us his Big Ten Pick'em. He talks a lot about the Alumni Association. He talks a lot about Penn State athletics in general. So it was a really fun, different discussion, and we appreciate him coming on. So we are going to go to that interview now on the podcast, and hope you enjoy it. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview with Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Again, if you're on YouTube, make sure you guys check that out. I really think you guys will enjoy it. Just to give you guys an idea for people that are on YouTube and are curious, Paul Clifford went with Ohio State over Iowa. He went with Rutgers over Indiana, went Purdue over Wisconsin, Maryland over Northwestern, and he picked Penn State as his double down, 28-17 over Minnesota. If you're curious, I believe, Sean, you went with Rutgers. I went with Indiana, right?
Right.
And then we were all on Purdue. We were all on Maryland. And then obviously we were all on Ohio State. So that's how that all went. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Anywho, I think we're ready for fan questions.
Bring them on.
The favorite part of the show. I'm surprised the fan question, so we've been cutting out these videos, right? And the fan question thing actually did pretty well last week on as its own, video, which I thought was pretty interesting. Okay, we're actually going to go to Tyler, who dropped his questions off to us on Facebook, which you guys can do that. People that are listening and find us on Facebook, we don't get as much Facebook activity. We're not as active ourselves on Facebook. But Facebook is definitely something you guys can do. Reach out to us on Facebook. He doesn't have a Twitter, which God bless him. I don't really want to have a Twitter sometimes either. So if that's something that's in, you can drop questions that way as well. Hopefully they show. There they go. And Tyler actually dropped us a 5-star review at one point. So we really appreciate him for that. All right, Sean, let's get these fan questions going. Sean, I don't know if you've seen these questions yet or not. So if you haven't, that's totally fine, but I'll read them off here first. Number one, do you guys think we will see a hurt Clifford play or see Aller over him? And then number two, how can we get the explosive Singleton back? Seems like he is stuck in a rut after not keeping his pace after Auburn. I think these are great questions because it's not asking us who we think should be playing, which I'm glad he worded these the way they did. And I think the Singleton question is a fantastic question. Sean, do you think that we will see a hurt Clifford play over Aller?
Well, we shouldn't. Because
that's the way they phrase it, right? Yeah.
I'm getting to it. We shouldn't. And look, I think Cliff should start. I think everybody listening to this podcast knows I think Cliff should start if he's healthy. But if he's not, if he's even questionable, then sure. I mean, I think Aller in a whiteout environment, again, not against Ohio State, but in a whiteout environment where I think we're going to win. Oh, shouldn't have said that. We should. I should say I think we should win. I think he should play. Now, to be fair, James Franklin has a history of rolling with banged up quarterbacks and being very slow on pulling quarterbacks that I think shouldn't be playing. Like in 2019 or 2018, I don't think Trey should have been playing against Michigan. I thought he was busted, for lack of a better term. I didn't think he couldn't run around. Trace not being able to run around isn't a fun Trace to watch. Hackenberg in 2015, don't think he should have been playing against Ohio State. So there's a history here of James Franklin sticking with quarterbacks that are a little banged up. Now, there's also history of the opposite happening. In 2019, Sean Clifford didn't play against Rutgers. And I don't think Clifford was hurt that bad, but Will Levis played. Why? I think it's because Franklin probably trusted Will Levis a little more than he trusted those previous quarterbacks. And I think it's this similar situation here. We already know they've played Drew Aller way more than they've played other backup quarterbacks. And, even before it's officially mop-up duty in the fourth quarter, Drew Aller's been getting in earlier in games than a lot of other backup quarterbacks had. So to answer your question finally, yes, I think they would play Drew Aller over Sean Clifford, but I get the trepidation in answering because I also had it. I had to think about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of thought that out because I was leaning the other way as well, but I guess obviously the cop-out answer is how hurt, but I think we will see a not 100% Sean Clifford on Saturday, to be honest with you. So if that is what I think, then I guess the answer is yes, we'll see a hurt. I don't think he's injured, but I think he's hurt. So I don't know if he's less than 90%, but I don't think he's 100%. Which, to be fair, who's 100% at this point in the season?
Exactly. Everybody's got bumps and bruises now.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good question, Tyler. His second question: how can we get the explosive Singleton back? I think this is a great question. I think in the Central Michigan game, he was bouncing it way too much, and we kind of ripped him a little bit for that. And then he fumbled in the Northwestern game, so that kind of ruined that day for him. So he's had 2 bad days in a row, and then the Michigan game happened, and he ran into a buzzsaw. So I don't think you have to necessarily do anything specifically. I think it's about getting him and his confidence back, which to me is not having him start against Minnesota. I think there are put him in situations where he's going to be successful. Bring him in on a 3rd down, where on a 3rd and 2, where he can catch a screen out of the backfield, or a 2nd and short and he can catch something out of the backfield. Don't put him in on 3rd and 10 when he has to pass protect and he gets absolutely run over by the Michigan linebacker. Find ways to get his confidence back the same way you would a young quarterback. And also don't ask him to run a bunch in between the tackles to try to get that back, because that's not his bread and butter. So the short answer is I think you start Katron Allen and you find ways to get Singleton in high percentage plays where he has a chance to bust one. And a guy like that, I don't think his confidence is even really hurt. I just think he just needs to see success. And then the rest will kind of take care of itself.
Yeah, I don't see him playing with a lack of confidence either. I think he just kind of hit a wall like a lot of freshmen do. And now the key is, how do you get him off that wall? And I agree with Corey. I think Katron Allen right now is your best running back. And I think he should start this week and maybe start the next week too, depending on how this week goes. And it's not all because of, and look, there's a difference between in high school playing in central Pennsylvania versus playing at IMG Academy. Like, you just get more, you're basically like a college student already being at IMG. You're playing in an offense that gets you ready to play D1 football with other D1 football guys. We just talked about what's his name, Robinson, coming up, and he's at IMG. And Katron going there versus Singleton going to, I believe it was Governor Mifflin. Yeah, that just gets you more prepared. And he's playing like it. He's more polished. And he's not really hitting that wall because IMG trains you in a way that maybe that happens less often. So, yeah, get him in what he does best. Swing passes, pitch plays, and situationally, and put him in different situations because we're going to need him. He shouldn't be benched. He shouldn't just get like 3 carries this week. We're going to need him. We're probably going to need him we might need him this week. We're definitely going to need him against Ohio State because you need your best guys against the Ohio States of the world. So he's going to bounce back. I'm not overly concerned with Nick Singleton, but it is an issue right now.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think that pretty much sums it up really well. This next question from Cowboy Ribeye, who's very active on Twitter and usually typically has our back, so we appreciate that. Why do you think Franklin made the comment about size and recruiting? It may be a factor, but clearly we have been this size for years and have been great at run defense. Was it, too, in a weird way, take the heat off Manny? Seems like a mistake. Took me this long to really dislike it. Well, Cowboy, what I came to the same realization to last night at like 11 o'clock, drinking my glass of milk before bed, right? I mean, I was watching film and I came to this exact same realization that you did, and I don't think we need to dwell on it very much because I think we talked about it a bunch already. But I think there's some truth to what you're asking here. I think the size in recruiting was a little bit of a deflection. I think it was a strategic deflection in the same way that you said, hey, like, Franklin doesn't need to tell us who the problem was as long as he's telling it internally. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters. And based off his track record of getting rid of guys that haven't been able to get the job done, and also, I don't think Manny needs to be told either, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think in a certain degree it was to take a little bit of the heat off Manny. But also remember the time, again, on when he said those things originally, and I think he might have just been fired up, and I think that was a part of it. And then he didn't, at that point, you can't really back off of what you said. So I think it's a combination of it all. I also don't think it's that deep as far as like a deeper conspiracy in the whole thing. I think the guy was frustrated that his team just got their ears beat the hell in and their eardrums are bleeding as they're walking out of the stadium. And the last thing you want to talk about is going deep in the offseason and recruiting and all that stuff. But yeah, Cowboy, I think to a certain degree it didn't make much sense. And in my opinion, you're going to see on Saturday why it didn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit of a deflection. I think he was trying to maybe take heat off of Manny Diaz a little bit. But like you said earlier in the podcast, Corey, like it was hard to tell live exactly. I mean, it was easy to tell if there were problems, but exactly to what degree the problems were. And, going back, looking at what happened, looking at different plays, it was mostly alignment. Did size have something to do with it? Maybe. I mean, Michigan they got more girth. They have more, that they are more muscular and they have more weight than Penn State does on both sides of the ball. But again, we've been over this. This isn't the end all be all. And, they're bigger than us this week. Might as well pack it in. Like, no, that's not the way football works. I mean, if that was the case, then Wisconsin would be playing, I don't know, Alabama, who is there every year. Wisconsin be in the Big Ten playoffs every year, or in the Big Ten championship and winning it every year, in the college football playoffs every year. Is they're bigger than everybody else in the Big Ten, but that's not football. So yeah, it was a deflection. Was it to take the heat off Manny? Probably to a degree, because you don't want to say, "Hey, my defensive coordinator just got exposed." Did everybody see that? So you don't want to say that. But we did discuss it was kind of a pot shot at Hakeem Beamon a little bit, and it's something that. Well, I wouldn't necessarily have that big of an issue with it on its own. It's one of those things that you should save for the off season and not during the season.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with all that. Next question from Dorito Bandit. Actually, two questions. Number one, I think this is Yursich. Has always had good offenses. What is so different now that Penn State offense lacks creativity? And do you think Aller starting would be better for the whiteout in the sense that there'd be more excitement in the fan base? That he wants to make sure everyone knows I'm not jumping on the bench Clifford train now. First question, he's always had good offenses. Why is it different now? Why do they lack creativity? I don't obviously have the answer. It's speculation, Sean. But to me, it's just the lack of weapons on the outside to a certain degree, right? Like, I mean, you could honestly, you can throw in maybe he doesn't trust Clifford to make every single throw as well. But to me, it's when you don't really, have a great running game that kind of handcuffs you a little bit. But then B, you don't really have any receivers you feel fantastic about right now. I mean, what do you think Yursich does when he picks up his play sheet? I mean, how constricted do you think he feels right now? I mean, that's to me the biggest question. The most creativity we saw on Saturday was they brought Parker Washington in motion, and then they ran the quarterback sweep on that second or third and goal. And that was like the most excitement thing we had. I will give them the 4th and goal where they did they trapped the defensive end and Fashanu actually came out and the tight end cracked. That was nice. That wasn't the creativity that Dorito is probably thinking about, but to me, that was nice to see. But Sean, to me, I think it just kind of all starts and ends with the lack of explosiveness that hasn't been displayed on the outside.
And I'll say this, to be fair to Mike Yursich this week, he really didn't have the ball much. So it's hard to be really creative when you're getting demolished in time of possession. Now, the retort to that would be, well, we should have been on the field longer. True, but it was still, your defense was putting you in really, really bad spots where you couldn't really open up the playbook as much as you wanted to. Now, I will say, in general, yeah, you got to be a little more creative.
I need to throw the fade route back on the screen again.
That's what I'm talking about. You don't run safe plays where nobody can catch the ball. Anywho,
if you ever just want to get Sean fired up, just tweet at us all day fade route videos.
Yeah, like that's mind numbing. I never want to see that again, and I thought they were gone. But they're not. So anyway, I think it's fair to say that having an average quarterback limits your creativity. And Sean Clifford's average. And Sean Clifford can't make the kinds of throws that we think Drew Aller is capable of making. And that does limit what you could do to an extent. And yeah, not having explosive players at receiver, yeah, that also limits what you could do. I mean, it's cool if you have a Jahan Dotson it's cool if you have Ohio State's receiving core, where it looks like where you lose Jackson Smith and Jigba, and it's like nothing even happened. I actually thought during the Wisconsin game, oh, Smith and Jigba's back. Like when I was first tuning in, nope. No, he's still not back. But they have just so many guys that
he'll be back, and he'll be 100%. He'll be 100% for the Penn State game, though.
Yeah, so get ready for that one.
I will say that Sean Clifford might be average as a quarterback, but he has clearly shown the ability to catch the football. So
that is true. Maybe this whole time he's been at the wrong position. He's got to join his brother Liam.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah, people are not going to appreciate us poking fun at them, but whatever, they'll be okay. Second question was about, what is it better for the environment if Aller starts? Maybe at first. I think people would be excited at first, woo. But then, this is pessimistic of me, but he fumbles a snap or he gets sacked because he didn't see the blitz coming or he throws a pick, God forbid. Then I think that could honestly flip really fast. So, no, I think the whiteout brings its own energy regardless of who the quarterback is. I mean, we saw one of the best whiteouts I was ever at. Matt McGlynn was the quarterback for. So, no offense to Matt McGlynn, but no, I don't think that really makes much of a difference. I mean, remember, and this isn't exactly what Dorito is trying to say, but the 2016 whiteout against Ohio State, I think Trace McSorley was 9 of 23. He completed 9 passes in that game. So, and that game was still very exciting. So I don't think, you have to have a great quarterback to be exciting in whiteouts, but to answer the question more specifically, I think maybe at first people would be excited to see his name on there, starting quarterback Drew Aller. But at the end of the day, the excitement's going to come from what you do on the field. So,
yeah, and I mean the atmosphere of the whiteout. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. But whiteout games are always better when you win. And no matter who you got at quarterback and all this, I mean, if we win on Saturday with Sean Clifford, people are still going to be happy. They might have said, oh, well, we would have won by more if Drew Aller was in. So you're always going to have that. But I think people like to win. And on the other hand, if we start Drew Aller, you'll hear, oh, yeah. And look, you should cheer for Drew Aller, and you should be excited to see what he can do. Definitely. We're Penn State fans. But, yeah, there probably will be more excitement because I think it's fair to say most of the fan base wants Drew Aller to start right now. But it's not going to mean a whole lot if we lose the game. If we win the game, I think what is fair to say, though, is if we win the game with Drew Aller and he looks good, that's going to excite people more than if we win the game and Sean Clifford looks good. I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. I mean, Drew Aller could pick his nose and people would be saying, see, he picks his nose better than Sean Clifford. I mean, we're at that point, which we knew that point was coming. But final question. This is from Mike Vales. Mike, perfect example of somebody who doesn't really agree with us, but isn't a jerk about it, which we appreciate. And so that's why we have his question up here. Mike says, in your complete honest opinion, Mike, believe it or not, all of our opinions are honest. And we've never been someone called us disingenuous, by the way. I was like, that's a new one. I mean, I'm a lot of things, but that wasn't one of them, especially, well, maybe I am, but not about Penn State football. Can Franklin get Penn State to the playoffs? First of all, Franklin is not an NFL coach. He cannot get him to the playoffs. However, if you're meaning can he get Penn State to the playoff, that would make a little bit more sense. Then he says, honest, unbiased opinion, in my opinion, no, he can't. Okay. Sean, I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, we almost did in 2016. Like, I mean, that could have went either way with us in Washington or us in Ohio State. So, I mean, yeah, we almost did already. I think when the playoff expands to 12 teams, I think he could because he has proven that he could put a top 12 team on the field. He's done it 3 times or 4 times we would have made it. So, to answer your question, I think the bigger question is, could he win a national championship? That I don't know. I think but at the same time, a lot of college football is about the Jimmies and Joes. Coach O is mostly incompetent. I mean, people like Coach O, and he's fun, and he says "Go Tigers," and everybody laughs, and he's not as good of a coach as James Franklin. But he had Joe Burrow, and he had Jamar Chase, and he had Justin Jefferson, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and a great offensive line. And that makes things a whole lot easier. So, I mean, do I think he can make the playoffs? Yeah, I do. But he's got to prove it. So it's fair to be trepidatious about that and to not want to say, oh, he definitely, it's fair to question it because he hasn't done it yet. So I get the question. And in my opinion, yes, we can make the playoffs with James Franklin.
In your honest, unbiased opinion?
Honest and unbiased. Look, I mean, I am as honest as, again, somebody like Corey. Who do I talk about Penn State football with? Corey, Mike, my dad, my other friends, who also listen to the show. Like I say the same exact things on here that I say to them. I'm not Skip Bayless. We don't try to get clicks and try to, twist ourselves into a pretzel to fit a narrative. That's not what we do here. We give you exactly what you think. And look, you might think I'm an idiot. I mean, that's fine, but I'm going to be an honest idiot, and I'm going to be real with you guys. So that's what I think. And by the way, I do like Mike. I do like Mike on Twitter. He's like Corey said, he's somebody who disagrees with us sometimes, but he's always very honest, but he's always very respectful with everything. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I have a feeling, Sean, the questions are going to have a different spirit next week if Penn State's able to win the game. I think people are trying to find avenues to kind of pick at things. I think maybe if Penn State's able to win on Saturday, things turn very quickly into a more positive light. I agree. I think he can get us there. Not much more to add. Thank you for all those fan questions. Again, you can message us on Facebook, the fan questions. You can message us on YouTube or drop them in the comments section on YouTube maybe. But Twitter, Hardcore PSU FB is the main place where we get those. And we appreciate it. So thank you for everyone who dropped those questions off. All righty. So I guess I can get rid of that. I think we're pretty much good. I think there's only really one last thing to do.
Prediction time.
Yeah. Remind me, Sean. Well, I guess, are we ready? I guess so. Remind me, did you go first or I go first?
I think I went first.
I think you went first too. Okay, so I'm up first. Great.
Good.
Well, I guess it's time for predictions. Okay, so like for real. Let me switch me over. Guess I better choose a team to win this thing. Okay. Prediction time. Penn State, Minnesota. Game I thought maybe a week or two ago could have been game day. That's not the case. Again, kind of a weird feeling coming off of a loss before the whiteout game. Penn State's and under James Franklin is not great after losses, but this is kind of a different circumstance. In that 3-game stretch now where you really wanted to see Penn State win one, maybe even two of these games, you got to win one before you can even win two. A lot of question marks around the quarterback position, a lot of question marks regarding the linebacker position. Minnesota is going to test both of those things again. Kirk Shiraka, redemption game. I really think if Tanner Morgan's able to play, this game is really close. I just don't think he's going to. And I really think a lot of the things that went wrong in the Michigan game are not going to happen again this week. Penn State gives up 400 yards in back-to-back weeks on the ground. This is not the team we thought they were defensively. And I really just don't – maybe I'm just stubborn, but I just really don't think we were that wrong about this defensive line. So at home in a whiteout, I think they slow down Mo just enough to maybe give themselves and their offense enough points that makes Minnesota then have to throw the ball a little bit more. And that's the difference. So because of that, I'm going maybe a late score makes it a little bit worse than it really is. But I think this defense turns things around. I think the whiteout forces a couple of turnovers, helps us get back on the turnover, department. Minnesota's not great as far as holding on to the football. They're not great at taking away the football. So yeah, I'm going to go Penn State 27, Minnesota 13, which I think is a wider margin than most people. But Sean, from the beginning, I have not been as high on Minnesota as other people. And I think we're going to see maybe just the Joes being a little bit of the difference in this one. And when it's all said and done, you calculate the whiteout into that. And I think Penn State and Sean Clifford typically is actually a little bit better at home statistically as well. So yeah, I'm going to go with Penn State 27, Minnesota 13.
Bigger margin than I thought.
Yeah. I think bigger margin than I originally thought too. I really liked Paul Clifford's 28-17, and I could see them getting to 17 as well. But I really think I like Penn State above 25 in this one, and I'm not really sure why. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
All right. Yeah, so this game is, and I think this whole season is going to be about stabilizing the program. And you might think, wow, it's a big statement, stabilizing the program, Yeah, and I think it is, because if we lose this one, we already, got our clocks cleaned against Michigan, got Ohio State next week. They're Ohio State. Yeah, so we'd be looking 3 straight losses dead in the eye. So it's a big one. And, I think about the 2016 Minnesota game where we're sitting there at halftime. It's a cold, rainy day. And I didn't really talk to anybody, but I remember thinking, if James Franklin, we should win this game because we're a better team than Minnesota, and James Franklin has paid a lot of money to figure out a way to win this one. And I think the same thing about this one. This is a game that, you hire James Franklin for, that you paid all that money for. Now, obviously, he also hired him to beat the Ohio States and Michigans of the world, but you're not always going to beat them. So you do not want things to turn into a tailspin. And you do not want to nosedive again. And I think the team understands, and I think the staff understands the gravity of that. And they understand the importance of keeping things together and knowing, hey, all right, maybe we're not as good as Michigan. We could have played better, but they're a really, really good team. But we could come back from this and we could rebound. And it starts this week. And I really think they get things right. And I'm going to pick Penn State to win 24-17. And it's going to be, Minnesota's going to give us some issues. Again, big physical offensive line is going to keep them in the game. But I think Penn State's going to jump out to an early lead. That whiteout environment's going to help. That whiteout environment, it could knock Minnesota's offense off schedule. We'll come out to like a 10-0 lead. And I think that's going to set the tone for the game. And we ultimately win by a touchdown in a hard-fought game that I think we walk out of there all feeling better about. Not saying we're going to be thinking we're going to go beat Ohio State the next week, but I think we're going to be feeling even better about that game. And like we have a puncher's chance. And we're going to be feeling really good about November. So Penn State 24, Minnesota 17. Let's get it done, guys, because I don't want to be miserable on the podcast on Sunday. I really don't. I hate being miserable talking about Penn State. I like being happy and pointing out, oh, this guy played well, and this guy played well, and that guy struggled, but that's okay because this guy played well. That's what I want to be like. So I think we're going to have that on Sunday.
Yeah, I guess, the only real difference in our score really is just think the Penn State, of anything happy to take away from the Michigan game was that they did hold up in the red zone a couple times. So I'm thinking it's the only reason I got maybe one more field goal than touchdown is really the only difference between your score and my score. So, yeah, I think we're about the same. But, yeah, I think me being at 27 is a little bit higher as far as points for Penn State. But whatever. Also, I saw a lot of like 21-17, 21-20, 24-20, and I just didn't want to be like everybody else. So
that's what we do here. We're trendsetters.
Yeah, we're disingenuous, biased trendsetters. Yeah. I had my bold prediction, which, by the way, I don't even remember what did we even say for the Michigan game as bold predictions. Trying to look here.
I had us missing an extra point,
That's
which
right.
didn't happen.
I'm still looking. JJ McCarthy, 2 turnovers is what I said. That's right.
Halfway there.
Yeah, could have almost, maybe should have been there, but
yeah.
I think and then Sean, did you go with the Kalen King pick 6 or was that me?
No, that was Mike.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, I had 2 turnovers for JJ, and that was close, but we're not playing horseshoes here. Bold prediction for me this week, I have Penn State having 3 rushing touchdowns.
I have Katron Allen going over 100 yards in his first start. that's not. I guess those are 2 bowl predictions. His first
That is
start.
that's a good point.
Yep. So I think
Write
this is
that
a
down.
good K-Tron Allen game, and people. This probably won't be viewed as much. It probably won't be. Maybe it will because it's the whiteout game. It's a 7:30 game. I think it'll be a lot like the Auburn game, and that people will be like, "Oh, this K-Tron Allen guy. They have him and Nick Singleton. Wow." So I think it'll really put him on the map.
Yeah, we'll let that slide as bold enough for me. I mean it's bold for 100 yards against Minnesota. Minnesota's got a statistically good rush defense. So for a single player to have 100 yards, that would be a good thing. Just so everyone knew, we went through those Clifford statistics a bunch before the Michigan game, and if you don't count the game because Clifford technically got hurt and didn't finish it, Penn State's still, whatever the heck you want to call him, 16-1 with under 30 attempts because he ended up with under. But if you include all of the passing attempts, Penn State was at 29. So, again, really close to still being around too many pass attempts overall, which kind of, again, goes back to the main point. They didn't have that many rushing yards. So, K-Tron Allen, I think you and I are both on the same page as far as we think Penn State's going to try to find a way to run the football. And I think we all agree if they're able to, they'll feel a lot better about not just beating Minnesota, but maybe even playing with Ohio State.
Right, and I think we got to get back to our bread and butter on offense, and that's what James Franklin, he came right out and said it. Run the ball, play action, easy throws for Sean Clifford, not reinventing the wheel, and I think that's what'll happen. I think it's going to be a get right game, and I think Minnesota's decent. I'm not saying they're great, but I think they're a decent team, and they're the type of team that could upset you. And the line for the game kind of scares me. We're only 4.5 at last I checked point favorites. And that's a little surprising, being that Minnesota might be starting their backup quarterback this week. And they're on the road and it's a whiteout game. Vegas might know about Franklin off of losses. But yeah, that's something that, can't lie, does scare me a bit.
Yeah, it does to me too. I don't know. I think Vegas is wrong, but I have been wrong this season as far as underestimating an opponent. I underestimated Central Michigan quite a bit, so I've been wrong in that department before as far as the covering and not happening. Okay, comes in last second here. The we are as we wrap things up here at 11:30. Is that right? 11:30 East. So. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on YouTube. Again, if you haven't already liked and subscribed the video, we really appreciate that. If you're listening on the podcast, again, make sure you're following. And if you've made it this far, consider dropping us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'll send you a sticker and read it on the show. Sean, anything else before we get on out of here?
No, I mean, time to get right. And if you're going to be there on Saturday, happy for you. Corey and I will not. We will both be at a wedding. I think it'll be the first game that Corey and I have watched together. So that'll be fun. Our buddy Mike, shout out to Mike and Alex. They're getting married. They're 2 of my best friends in the whole world, and they're marrying each other. So I'm very, very excited for them. And yeah, we'll be watching the game as much as their girlfriends allow us to watch the game. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be up to. I don't know what time we're going to do our pod on Sunday because Corey's going to be traveling, obviously from Alabama up to Scranton. So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So yeah, the show will probably be Sunday night. On Sunday.
Sunday night.
Yeah,
Sunday night, there you go.
Why don't we let's just say 9 Eastern. I think I can get it swung. I mean, we'll be home. I don't want to tell everyone my travel plans necessarily, but that will give plenty of time as far as that, that's concerned. So, anywho, yeah, we'll shoot for 9 Eastern or so on Sunday. Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated. Wouldn't it be nice, Sean, if it's just a blowout and it's like 28-0 at the half, and we can just kind of not worry about it the rest of the night and just enjoy the night?
Yeah, that's the dream. And hey, sometimes teams, now hasn't happened with Penn State very much. Sometimes teams come out like that after losses. Like they're really mad because they know they should have played better last week, and they really take it out on the opponent the next week. Could happen. Could happen. Stranger things have happened. And yeah, that would be my ideal night on Saturday. And it's possible. It's possible. It's also possible we lose. So, as Kevin Garnett once said, anything is possible.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a big moment here for everybody. So we'll definitely be paying attention to it. They'll have the nice, cool uniforms and the cool enzymes as well. So it should be a good one. Thank you guys so much for listening. For Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoke. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. We will see you back here Sunday night to recap the Penn State-Minnesota game and start peeking ahead to the Ohio State game. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody.